Hello, everybody. A for Awesome here. It's been qu- quite a long time since I made one of these types of videos. And This is actually my second attempt to. Yeah. This is my second attempt to film this. The script for this video is probably the longest I've ever written because it's nearly 200 pages. Um, so like that's rough. But that's fine. So today we're going to be going over the entire history of Superman in comics. This is inspired by videos of a similar nature that I've seen around for Batman and Spider-Man. I thought that Superman would be a good character to do. I've always wanted to do a kind of video like this, but all the characters the comic books are really hard to get into. They're really hard to follow, and it takes a lot of research and like time devoted to make a video like this. And so I didn't just want to pick any random character. Um, and I figured the new Superman movie's coming out soon, so this is it. I've also got one already. The script's already finished for it for Green Lantern, specifically Alan Scott, Hal Jordan, Kyle Rayner, Guy Gardner, and John Stewart. All those Green Lanterns, because those are just the five whose comics I've actually read. Um, I don't really know much about Jessica Cruz or the other guy whose name I can't remember. So it's just the ones that I remember growing up with, or have known about for the most part, have good knowledge of. And if there's any other comic book characters that you are interested, DC or Marvel, in hearing a video like this for, let me know in the comments below. And there's a good chance that I have enough pre-existing knowledge on them as a character that I could probably begin a script and yeah. So it's a whole ordeal. As you can see, there's some Injustice 2 footage in the background. And if you hear some noise in the background of this recording, it's probably just my TV because I usually have something on. Well, that one wasn't my TV. That was my phone. that one, that one, that one was spinning on my TV. That was my phone. I'm gonna put my phone on vibrate. That was my PlayStation app. But anyway, so here we are, and we're going to begin. Now, beginning our history is very tough, as it really isn't as simple as just reading from issue 1 to now, because it never is with really any comic character. So instead, before we begin, I'd like to clarify the different ages, the different eras of Superman comics, or as I put them, ages, and how they are connected or not connected continuity wise. So, we begin with the Golden Age, which covers Superman's first appearance in Action Comics in 1938, as well as Superman number 1 from 1939, all the way into the early 50s. And I've got different bookmarks for different ages. So there we have obviously have the Golden Age, the Silver Age, the Bronze Age, the New 52, and Rebirth. So that's what we'll kind of get into. Is each one of these ages are kind of each DC relaunch, and yeah. So starting with the early years, Superman was born Kal-El, not with an E, just Kal hyphen L. That's a little too loud. That's better. Of the planet Krypton. His father was the esteemed scientist Jor-El, Jor-L, and his mother was a librarian named Laura. While Kal-El was still a toddler, his father discovered that the planet Krypton teetered on the brink of absolute destruction. Realizing that there was not enough time to save everyone on the planet, he deposited his son inside of a specially designed rocket ship and launched him into outer space. After traveling through space for an indeterminate amount of time, his rocket eventually crash-landed in a small farming community named Smallville on the planet Earth. Though at first placed in an orphanage, Kal-El was adopted by the Kents and given the name Clark. Over the time, he discovered his many powers. During his teen years, Clark met a strange visitor from another universe, his own counterpart, Superboy from Earth 1. The more experienced Superboy helped train Clark in the use of his powers. During this period, Clark briefly worked as a circus strongman under the identity of the Masked Wonder. Eventually, Ma Kent later died, and when Pa Kent was on his deathbed, he made Clark promise to use his powers for the good of mankind, and Clark became Superman. Clark earned himself a job as a reporter at the Daily Star, not the Daily Planet, after turning in a story about Superman's first public act. Despite his honorable mention, Superman was not initially considered considered a hero. Hero. Oh my God, English. And was in fact regarded as a vigilante working outside and at many times against the authorities. Many of his earliest public actions showed him engaging in aggressive actions against wife beaters, slumlords, and various other social criminals, as opposed to, you know, actual criminals. As the champion, naming himself the champion of the oppressed back in the day, it was a very clear part of his character that he always fought to help minorities and vulnerable people. As time progressed, though, he began to fight larger, more direct, and obvious criminals, which gathered his identity as a hero, most notably against Alexei Luthor, who, unlike Earth 1's Lex Luthor, had red hair and was far more bloodthirsty. As Clark Kent, he reported on his own adventures and was eventually partnered with Lois Lane, a courageous female reporter who had a crush on Superman, but who didn't really like Clark Kent. Lane and Kent would usually butt heads with each other on getting the most adventurous stories, but the two eventually gained each other's respect. Lane would eventually begin to suspect Kent was Superman based on his constant disappearances whenever Superman would appear, and the fact that Clark would always have the most detailed reports, despite the fact that she was there. Eventually, she would figure out Clark Kent was Superman and would marry him in the 1950s. Superman was originally unaware of his powers and his own nature as a Kryptonian, thinking himself just an advanced human. His superpowers were a result of his Kryptonian heritage, where the Kryptonians native to his original universe had known super abilities. As Superman aged, his powers increased. For example, he was able to progress to actual flight, where he could only originally leap tall buildings. His strength level increased to extensive power, where he started out merely lifting cars and was able to lift and throw tanks. His first clue as to his alien nature was discovered when he battled Dan Rivers. The glowing stone Dan Rivers wore in his turban was actually kryptonite. In order to find out why kryptonite made him weak, Superman went on a voyage of discovery to find out the origins. Superman was able to time travel under his own power to watch his father and the events that led him being sent to Earth. Later, he defeated Dan Rivers and cast the two fragments of kryptonite into the river. After his return to the current time, he continued to get more villains like the Puzzler, the Archer, the Ultra Humanite, Toyman, Prankster, and Funny Face, as well as many more. During one battle with Funny Face, Superman clashed with a duplicate of his fake criminal identity, the Flying Tiger. But while most of these villains were merely operating on scientifically based equipment, Superman found his most effective villain in the form of the short, mostly purple suited mystical imp. Kal-El was a formidable presence and helped establish the Justice Society of America. Though, due to his various personal adventures, Superman was only able to join part time. He would later join the super team called the All-Star Squadron, which included Earth's two American superheroes of the World War II era. After establishing himself as one of the premier heroes of Earth 2, Kent later started to focus on his personal life, advancing his own reporter career to become the lead investigative reporter for the Daily Star. Always mindful, Kent kept his ambitions in check, and Superman became retired. This would change in the early 1950s, though, when two of his enemies would fight to see which one was more powerful, Colonel Future or the Wizard. After several defeats at the hands of the Man of Tomorrow, Colonel Future challenged the powers of the Wizard to prove its effectiveness. To prove his superpowers, the Wizard cast a spell to rid the world of Superman. The spell misfired, though, and made Clark just forget he was Superman. Freed of his need to repress his more aggressive and assertive persona, Kent acted out his nature, but without his costume and flight abilities. Kent continued to battle evil as an open, crusading reporter, even directly engaging in hand-to-hand battles against criminals, which of course he would win because he's Superman. Also freed of self-restrictions, he once again expressed his love for Lois. Without his clumsy acts and disappearing devices, he eventually won the heart of Lois Lane. The two married, and Lois discovered Clark was secretly Superman. Later, George Taylor retired as editor-in-chief of the Daily Star, and Clark replaced him, promoting Lois to lead investigative reporter, though he usually spied on her as Superman to make sure she was safe. By the 1960s, it was clear that Clark Kent was not immortal as he began showing his age. In the 70s, his cousin Kara arrived on Earth 2 after her decades-long journey. Superman had mostly retired from heroic activity, focusing on his personal life as editor of the Daily Star, leaving the costumed heroic actions to the younger generation, including Power Girl, which was his cousin. Though he occasionally came out as Superman, and even formally joining the New Justice Society, but only part-time, wanting to stay mostly retired. And eventually, he got married to Lois, he retired, and he lived happily ever after. A pretty good story, right? Wrapped up pretty well. Well, that's until the Silver Age began. Now, this is a very confusing era, as Superman never really had a full reboot. Unlike Batman, Green Lantern, The Flash, and others, his comics just continued the way they were, and never really specified when the new continuity started. So, how do we categorize specifically what takes place on this new Earth known as Earth One, as the Golden Age was now labeled Earth Two? Well, this took hours of research, but I believe I have the definitive narrative. So we begin in Superman issue number 146, which covers the origin of Earth 1 Superman and confirms that we exist in another timeline as the origin is slightly altered. Afterward, going in timeline order, we cover every single issue of Superboy, the adventures of Superman when he was a boy. After that, we retell the first appearance of Superman in Action Comics number 1. Some time passes, and the adventures of Golden Age Superman number 56 or number 46 take place. More time passes, and the events of Golden Age Superman number 78 take place, and we go from there. The events. So, what happened to Superman of Earth 1, also known as Pre-Crisis Superman, or one of the most well-known versions? Kal-El, this time with the EL, was born to the highly decorated scientific genius Jor-El and his wife Lara, a former astronaut of Krypton. Like all Kryptonians, Kal-El had no superhuman powers or abilities on Krypton because of its red sun, but was, like his father, a very astute and intelligent boy who learned to speak and read in Kryptonian by the time he was 3 years old. Jor-El and Lara decided to name their baby boy after a thespian friend who spent a few weeks in Kryptonopolis involved in the shoot of a film with the world-famous actress Lila Larow. Unfortunately, the actor was presumed killed, propelled into the stratosphere in a disastrous incident involving a flame dragon. Unbeknownst to Jor-El and Lara, this very actor was the time-traveling adult version of Kal-El. At about the same time, Jor-El learned that Krypton was doomed to explode, and he brought this to the attention of Krypton's technocratic ruling body, the Kryptonian Science Council. Fearing the worst for his planet, Jor-El advised the Council to build a fleet of space rockets so that they could leave Krypton and colonize another world. Disbelieving Jor-El's prediction, the ruling council refused to warn their fellow Kryptonians and forbade Jor-El from doing so. Lara pledged to remain with her husband, and when Jor-El tried to force her to leave with her son, she refused. Jor-El launched the ship to Earth, knowing that Earth's lower gravity and the yellow sun would give his son superpowers. Though Krypton's core avoided exploding, the alien agent Black Zero artificially accelerated the core and destroyed the planet. Tomar Ray, the Green Lantern of Space Sector 2813, sworn to protect Krypton, failed and Krypton exploded. The rocket crash-landed on Earth in an open field outside Smallville, Kansas. It was there that the missile and the young Kal-El were discovered by small land farmers Jonathan and Martha Kent. Upon finding the young boy, Martha became attached to Kal-El, while Jonathan elected to have the child's true family found. Martha persuaded Jonathan to keep the boy as their adopted child, naming him Clark. The Kents fashioned a set of clothes for their new super baby from the blankets in the rocket. This same fabric was later used to create the Superboy and Superman costume. Jonathan and Marka instilled their adopted son a good sense of right and wrong and an appreciation for helping others. The young Clark took the advice to heart and, when he was 8 years old, became active as Superboy. Clark's first outing as Superboy was rescuing a married couple who were also scientists from an international spy. Meanwhile, as Clark Kent, Kal-El pretended to be an average human and became friends with Lana Lang and Pete Ross while going through primary and secondary school. While Lana tried repeatedly to prove that Clark Kent and Superboy were the same person, Pete discovered his secret first. Nevertheless, Pete never told anybody. Superboy discovered his origins from Krypton for the first time by overtaking light rays reflected off the dead planet before its destruction. As he grew older and his powers increased, however, Kal-El developed total recall of his first few years of life. Clark received a superpowered Kryptonian puppy, Krypto, when the dog crash-landed just like he had. As Clark grew up on Earth, he was mindful of obeying the law. He worked directly with Police Chief Parker and other law enforcement agencies, which led to Superboy's acceptance as a hero by the people of Smallville. In fact, by the time Clark was 12, the town officially recognized him as the most popular citizen with a billboard that said, "Welcome to Smallville, the home of Superboy." Nonetheless, Superboy's presence attracted lots of trouble, mostly in the fact that he had to hide his secret identity and fought plenty of criminals. Early in his career, Superboy revealed his alien origins from Krypton to an aspiring journalist named Perry White, who went on to receive a Pulitzer Prize. And eventually, the United States Congress gave Superboy U.S. citizenship. Clark first learns about his vulnerability to green kryptonite when Jonathan Kent accidentally exposes him to it. Even then, Clark manages to keep awareness of this weakness super secret until the Smallville municipal government declared the first Earth Day as a local holiday, and a scientist unveiled a sample of kryptonite and accidentally caused him to collapse. From that day onwards, the whole world knew kryptonite could weaken or kill Superboy. Later, Superboy encountered the threat of red kryptonite when a Martian traveler exposed him to it and created an evil duplicate. Superboy first learned of his weakness under the rays of red-type stars while passing through a red sun system, barely making the landing on a nearby world. Superboy constructed a rocket and blasted off into space, navigating through the space warp, leading for him back to the solar system and getting his powers back. Superboy first discovered that the rules of time travel would not permit him to exist in any period where he was already present while traveling back to the year 1962. Lana Lang would acquire a biogenetic ring from an alien that she rescued, allowing her to manifest insect abilities and traits. She became a superhero known as Insect Queen, although she usually only saved the day to get Superboy's attention. Twice in his adolescence, Clark was visited by a robot teacher programmed by Jor-El to test his son's worthiness. The first time, the robot tested Clark's ability to utilize his super strength, flight, super speed, invulnerability, X-ray vision, and ingenuity, with the final test being given to judge his capacity to set aside his desires to save the world. The robot returned again some years later to do a more advanced test, but manipulating Clark into falling in love with a brainwashed girl and faking her death to test Clark's ability to maintain control under grief. Superboy was contacted by Cosmic Boy, Saturn Girl, and Lightning Lad of the Legion of Superheroes and offered an invitation to join them. Although he technically failed his test, he had been diverted by his goals by simulated crises created by the Legion, as the true test was to see how he would handle rejection. Once satisfied, they brought Superboy into their team. Superboy encountered Ultra Boy for the first time when the youth was dispatched from the 30th century by the Legion to find his secret identity. Succeeding, Ultra Boy helped Superboy rescue Pete Ross from a booby-trapped bank vault. Soon afterward, Superboy encountered another Legionnaire, Starboy, and helped him to capture a pair of escaped crooks in the 30th century, in addition to outwitting Lana Lang's repeated attempt to make him jealous by fawning over Starboy. As a member of the Legion, Superboy played a pivotal part in many of the team's early adventures. Superboy participated in the Lightning Rod ritual on Korbal to revive Lightning Lad from his death approximating stasis, defended Starboy in a Legion court-martial for his usage of lethal force, and briefly served as acting chairman of the Legion of Superheroes to recruit Pharaoh Lad, Princess Projectra, Karate Kid, and Nemesis Kid. Superboy and Supergirl were honorably discharged from the Legion when a great green kryptonite cloud went around the Earth's atmosphere, but not before they nominated their own successors, Surprise and Mysterious, to take their places. After the two new Legionnaires used their unique skills to defeat Prince Evilo and his Devil's Dozen, they were revealed to be Starboy and his girlfriend, Dream Girl, and they were permitted to rejoin the Legion. Color Kid of the Legion of Substitute Heroes then changed the green kryptonite cloud into blue kryptonite. When a Sun Eater was spotted on a runaway course for the solar system, the Legion sought out the Fatal Five to help them stop it in return for presidential pardons, with Superboy being tasked with the recruitment of the Emerald Empress. When the time came, the Sun Eater proved too great for even Superboy's might, overwhelming him with its raw power and putting him out of commission. The Sun Eater was eventually demolished through the heroic sacrifice of Pharaoh Lad, and the Fatal Five subsequently turned on the weakened Legionnaires. Fortunately, Princess Projectra happened to appeal to Validus to revolt against Tharok's self-serving leadership, and the Fatal Five vanished in a flash of light. Superboy brought Lana Lang on one of his trips to the 30th century as a reward for showing greater respect for his secret identity. Eager as ever, Lana applied for the Legion membership as Insect Queen, but was rejected. While grieving for Pharaohlad's sacrifice, Superboy was attacked by an apparition claiming to be the deceased Legionnaire's spirit, demanding the immediate disbanding of the Legion. Superboy was then captured by the Controller, who revealed that he was responsible for setting the Sun Eater loose upon the galaxy, simulated the recent appearances of Pharaohlad's spirit, and intended to possess Superboy's body. Just as the rest of the Legion arrived to rescue Superboy, the Controller was frightened to death what was the true ghost of Pharaohlad. Superboy and the Legion were then outlawed by the UP when the Universo took over by impersonating the president. With the help of the new Legion inductee Shadowlass, Superboy and the Legion liberated Talek 8 from the grip of the Fatal Five and defended the Central Command Console. In the course of the battle, the Legion clubhouse was damaged. As such, the UP subsidized the construction of a larger and more advanced Legion HQ out of gratitude. Superboy and the members of the Legion then repelled a Dark Circle invasion from Earth using the Miracle Machine. Back in the 30th century... Wait, that was already... Oh, sorry, I skipped something. Superboy, Mon-El, Duo Damsel, and Shadowlass went into hiding from Mordru, the Dark Lord of Xerox, in 20th century Smallville after the Evil Mage's latest outing. Back in the 30th century, Colossal Boy was expelled from the Legion for trying to smuggle sensitive info about the Legion to Tarek the Mute, who was holding Colossal Boy's parents hostage to force him to help. After it was determined that Colossal Boy was being coerced in his actions, Superboy went undercover as a delinquent Legion reject to attract the attention of the Legion of Supervillains, and receive entry into their training grounds. However, Superboy was unable to keep up the ruse, and a battle erupted. Reinforced by the rest of the Legion and the Science Police, Superboy and his teammates were able to shut down Tarek's operation. Later, the Legion of Superheroes came under review by the United Planets Internal Revenue Service for failing to pay taxes. As the Legion had now reached 26 members, it became necessary for them to pay taxes, as every organization over 25 members must pay taxes. Unfortunately, this meant that it became necessary for Karate Kid to dismiss one Legionnaire, so that they'd fall under the limit and avoid charges of tax evasion, instead of just paying their taxes. Various Legionnaires volunteered themselves to resign, and several Legionnaires attempt to sabotage tests employed, but Superboy decided to quit and return to the 20th century. One boy, Superboy was incapacitated by a large kryptonite meteorite on the property of the Luthor family. By pure happenstance, the boy tending the fields, Lex Luthor, happened upon the scene and removed the kryptonite. Superboy and Lex Luthor became best friends, and Lex proudly showed him his private collection of Superboy-related merchandise. While Superboy used his powers to stock Lex's home with rare materials, in gratitude, Lex resolved to devise an antidote to kryptonite. However, Lex accidentally caused a chemical fire, and in Superboy's attempt to extinguish the flames with his super breath, he knocked a vial of acid into the protoplasm, destroying it and emitting fumes that causes all of Lex's hair to fall out. An enraged Lex turned on his former hero, making several attempts to supplant Superboy as Smallville's resident hero.
This backfired when each of Lex's projects backfired, requiring Superboy to save the town and causing the public to view Luthor as a menace. Developing an intense, fanatical obsession with taking down Superboy, Luthor resorted to criminal schemes to get his way. As a result, Luthor was incarcerated repeatedly in juvenile detention centers, while his family left the town and changed their name to escape his reputation. Lex's younger sister Lena was kept ignorant of her relationship to the supervillain as she got older, being told by her parents that her brother died in a car accident. While bearing witness to Professor Dalton's exhibition of a duplicate array, which could theoretically materialize perfect copies of existing objects down to the molecular level, but actually created imperfect duplicates, Superboy was hit by the ray. The product of this mishap was the materialization of Bizarro. Overhearing Superboy call it bizarre, he took the name Bizarro and wandered aimlessly, causing chaos. Ultimately, Superboy put an end to it by colliding into it with some material from the ray. It is during his youth that Clark first encounters the juvenile fifth-dimensional being who breached the third dimension with a space warp against the wishes of his elders. Superboy also fought the Kryptonite Kid, an alien criminal whose mutation by green kryptonite space clouds gave him the ability to emit an aura of kryptonite radiations and transmute anything else into kryptonite. The Kryptonite Kid came to Earth in order to become the planet's greatest criminal, knowing of his ability to uniquely affect Kryptonians, and specifically Superboy. In their first encounter, Superboy was only saved by Kryptonite Kid by the fifth dimension imp, who reasoned that if the Kryptonite Kid killed Superboy, that he would be deprived of years' worth of playing pranks. Superboy would encounter remnants of the Kryptonian civilization during his time on Earth, starting with a casket of technological artifacts from Krypton that crashed on Earth and was discovered by Lana Lang's archaeologist father, Professor Lewis Lang. Superboy was summoned by the professor to open the casket and deciphered the note left within, written in Kryptonese by his father Jor-El, which explained that the devices contained were powerful weapons illegally manufactured on Krypton by Jor-El's cousin Kruel. I just realized it says Cruel. Contained along with the arsenal of forbidden weapons was the Phantom Zone projector, which the Kryptonian penal system, penal, used in lieu of prisons and capital punishment to banish Krypton's criminal element to an ethereal twilight dimension, the Phantom Zone. Superboy was transported to the Phantom Zone when a lizard pressed the button on the back of the projector by accident. However, Superboy realized that he had limited influence on the physical world, even as a phantom, by focusing his thoughts and used his method to clue Jonathan Kent in on his predicament and arrange his release from the zone. Afterwards, Superboy placed the Phantom Zone projector and other Kryptonian weapons back into the casket and deposited it at the Atlantic Ocean. Superboy briefly believed that he had a brother when a rocket crash landed in Smallville carrying a strangely garbed teenager with similar powers. Although the boy had amnesia, the boy's rocket contained a letter bearing Kryptonese well wishes from Jor-El and Lara, leading Superboy to assume that they were brothers. Because the rocket arrived on Earth on a Monday, Superboy constructed the Kryptonian name for his brother, Mon-El. When Mon-El had no reaction to green kryptonite radiations and Krypto didn't recognize him, Superboy began to realize that maybe he wasn't actually his brother. To force Mon-El to reveal his treachery, Superboy exposed him to lead. This caused Mon-El to experience a strong reaction to the metal, and he had the unintended side effect of restoring his memories. Mon-El explained that he came from a planet called Daxam, whose inhabitants have the same powers as Kryptonians. That he stopped briefly on Krypton prior to the destruction of it, and met Jor-El and Lara. As Daxamites have a similar reaction to lead as Kryptonians due to green kryptonite, with the added caveat that the effects are irreversible, Superboy now almost just killed his friend. Superboy sent his friend to the Phantom Zone until he could find a cure. In the 30th century, a cure was eventually found, allowing him to join the Legion of Superheroes. Superboy would later encounter a genuine survivor of Krypton, the same age as him, the juvenile delinquent Dev M, who tried to ruin Superboy's reputation by sending him to the Phantom Zone and impersonating him. But eventually, once traveling to the 30th century, Dev M would learn the error of his ways and join the Interstellar Counterintelligence Corps of the United Planets and aided the Legion of Superheroes. Although he resigned from the Legion of Superheroes, Superboy remained available for them. Although no longer contacted regularly, Superboy was called into action to tell Cosmic Boy apart from a duplicate, free Chameleon Boy's mind from a mystic blood gem created by Mordru to compel those to look into it to murder Superboy,
Thor alien mercenary Tyr schemed to brainwash Timberwolf, stop the Fatal Five from activating a time altering device from the 20th century, prevent Tyr from breaking out of custody with his autonomous cybernetic arm cannon, and keep Starfinger from kidnapping Duo Damsel on the eve of her wedding with Bouncing Boy. After the wedding, both Duo Damsel and Bouncing Boy left the Legion so that they could become civilians. As a result, Superboy was restored to first full service as a Legionnaire. Afterwards, Superboy welcomed Wildfire and Tyrock to the Legion, witnessed the death of the Invisible Kid, and fought against the Fatal Five and the Legion of Supervillains. After warding off an attack by the Time Trapper, Superboy and the Legion encountered the Colon villain Pulsar Stargrave, who warned them of an impending battle with Mordru for control of the universe. Stargrave urged the Legion to side with him in the coming conflict, but Superboy and his allies rebuked Stargrave for assuming that they would want to assist the would-be tyrant. Stargrave defeated the Legionnaires and deceived Brainiac 5 into believing that he was Brainiac's father, Brainiac 4. Though Stargrave disappeared after his victorious battle with the Legion, Superboy eavesdropped on Brainiac 5 at Legion HQ later that night, overhearing as Brainiac 5 swore loyalty to Stargrave over the Legion. Following the Legion's defeat of Resource Raiders with the help of the new member Dawnstar, Superboy and his teammates learned that Brainiac 5 went on a mission to steal a mystical artifact of power. In the process, Brainiac 5 learned that Stargrave was not actually his father, but actually the first version of Brainiac. Superboy and his fellow Legionnaires found Brainiac 5 in the orbit of Kolu, having lost against Stargrave in a one-on-one confrontation. Stargrave descended upon the planet beneath him and launched multi-pronged attacks against Kolu's infrastructure in order to distract the Legionnaires. Brainiac 5 determined that Stargrave aimed at resurrecting the long inoperative computer tyrants. Superboy and the Legion defeated the United Planets against subterfuge by the Dark Circle. Chemical King sacrificed his life to defuse a bomb, but Superboy and the Legion brought the fight to the Dark Circle homeworld in search of revenge. The Legion canceled the siege of the homeworld after Dragon was captured on Earth, but this was a mere prelude for things to come. Superboy was pulled into the greatest challenge to face the Legion of Superheroes yet, as Mordru used the Dark Circle, the Kuns, and the Resource Raiders, as the secret puppet master behind all three factions, in a campaign to sabotage UP Dominator peace talks at Weber's World, and destroy the Earth out of spite. After Mordru executed his takeover plan, Superboy was one of the 4 remaining Legionnaires alongside Karate Kid and Lightning Lad and Saturn Girl to stand in Earth's defense. Stargrave returned with a plan to frame Ultra Boy for the murder of his ex-girlfriend, fooling the Legion's internal investigation team. Meanwhile, Stargrave infected Brainiac 5 with a disease and preyed upon his increasing instability to make Brainiac 5 his partner in crime. After the conclusion of the Earth War, Chameleon Boy re-reviewed the evidence from the murder case and deduced the true identity of the culprit when Stargrave appeared in Legion HQ and struck Chameleon Boy into a coma to suppress the information. However, Chameleon Boy kept backups of his files, which were decoded by Wildfire, who convened the majority of active Legionnaires to reveal his conclusion from the evidence that the actual murderer was Brainiac 5. Under Stargrave's influence, Brainiac 5 took sole credit for the conspiracy. At the same time, Stargrave used the Miracle Machine to create a hate entity called Omega, which held the power to destroy the universe. Superboy and the other Legionnaires tried in vain to stop Omega's onslaught. Ultimately, the Legion had to appease the insane Brainiac 5 to find a solution by declaring Brainiac 5 as the master of the universe. The actual solution required former Legionnaire Tenzil Kem to eat the Miracle Machine, which drove him insane. In the aftermath, the Legion HQ was reduced to a pile of rubble. In addition, Brainiac 5 and Tenzil were remanded to a psychiatric care facility. Only some years later, when a change in the Earth government administration challenged the integrity of the Legion Charter based on Brainiac 5's actions, did it emerge that much of the scheme was Stargrave's doing, with Brainiac 5 being used as a scapegoat. Topping these misfortunes was the sudden inexplicable bankruptcy of RJ Brand. Unable to secure funding to continue their operations from either Brand or the UP, the Legion of Superheroes braved an uncertain future. In this vulnerable state, Superboy and the Legion were challenged by a new villain team calling themselves the League of Super Assassins. Brainiac 5's intellect proved pivotal in saving Superboy and his comrades' lives from the Super Assassins. Furthermore, being saved by Brainiac 5 strengthened Superboy's private conviction to restore his former friend to sanity, as now the Boy of Steel was indebted to Brainiac 5. Superboy joined with Lightning Lad, Cosmic Boy, and Saturn Girl to commandeer the hologram room of a futuristic amusement park and program it to display a simulation that would restore Brainiac 5 to sanity. Afterwards, Superboy helped the Legion conduct an unauthorized investigation of R.J. Brand's financial records
and determined that he was bankrupted by illicit siphoning of funds from his bank accounts by Earth government president. The Legion and Brand confronted Boltax in the UP inner council chambers, where Boltax admitted to his crime. Boltax fell into disgrace, and the inner council offered to make Brand reparations. Still, Brand declined, feeling that Earth needed the money more than he did, and he wanted to rebuild his business as an opportunity to reconnect with common people. Legionnaires offered to donate their time on leave to help him. No sooner was the matter settled than several Legionnaires came under attack by an escapee named Rageous Tomac. When Tomac came up against Superboy, the so-called Psycho Warrior attempted to drive Superboy into a nervous breakdown by revealing the fate of his parents, the Kents. Unwilling to make himself forget how his destiny to fail his parents, Superboy left the Legion of Superheroes and went back to the 20th century for good. Superboy concentrated on his Smallville superhero career after telepathically enforced hiatus from the Legion's missions in the 30th century. Superboy was frustrated by the appearance of a new teen superhero in Smallville, calling himself Astrolad. Superboy identified Astrolad as his ordinarily nebbish classmate, Joey Silver, and put a stop to his career out of concern for his safety. After Superboy helped a group of alien visitors destroy red sun radiation spores that they had accidentally let loose on Earth, he was offered a reward but refused. Instead, the aliens bestowed Superboy's gift upon John Kent, using their power to give John 30 hours of quality time with his son in the future after his death. Inspector Bill Henderson visited Smallville on behalf of the city of Metropolis to convince Superboy that his powers could be put to better use there. Meanwhile, the Kents counter-argued that Superboy lacked the experience to leap from Smallville to Metropolis. Superboy sided with his parents, albeit not without finding the opportunity to help the Inspector put a few crooks away. While combating a twister raging through Smallville, Superboy accidentally hit the vibrational frequency, which shifted him across the dimensional barrier to Earth 2. There, he encountered his parallel universe counterpart and taught him how to use his powers. This encounter somehow inspired Clark Kent of Earth 2 to create Superman, basing his costume on that of Superboy. In response to a challenge by local detractor Carl Draper, Superboy created an android named Kator to prove that he could overcome an opponent even more powerful than him. Superboy barely survived his first encounter, and survived by an even thinner margin after his second one. In the 30th century, Ultra Boy was caught in an explosion on the pirate planetoid New Tortuga. He was presumed deceased by the Legion of Superheroes. In fact, Ultra Boy's powers saved his life from the explosion. Still, the massive release of energy shunted him to be in interdimensional limbo. After failing to contact the Legionnaires in his era, he managed to get his thoughts to Superboy in the 20th century. But they merged minds. With Ultra Boy's psyche overlaying over his own, Superboy caused a disruption with an atom bomb test in the process of returning to the 30th century. Subsequently, Superboy adopted the new identity Reflecto, and he helped the Legion stop Grimbor the Chains Man. Afterwards, Legionnaires unmasked Reflecto as Superboy, to Superboy's own confusion, as he thought he was Ultra Boy. Superboy and a team of Legionnaires returned to the 20th century to get to the bottom of the mystery when the Time Trapper struck out to separate the Legionnaires and pick them off. Phantom Girl phased Superboy along with herself to a different dimension in order to sidestep the Time Trapper's assault, freeing Superboy's mind from the influence of Ultra Boy. Superboy moved to rescue Ultra Boy from Limbo and regrouped with other Legionnaires at the end of time. Superboy then rejoined the Legion on the condition that Saturn Girl erase his knowledge of his parents' death. Back in his own era, Clark helped double agent Corey Renwald complete a spy mission, briefly exiled himself in time to the Old West to learn how to control his powers, fought Dr. Chaos, Pulsar, and the Superboy Revenge Squad. Superboy then encountered a novice magic user known as Yellow Perry, when her imperfect command of her mystical powers caused a bunch of disasters, and he also defeated classmate turned supervillain Dynamite. On an adventure in Tokyo, Superboy helped Japanese superhero Sunburst outsmart a gang of crooks who were coercing him into committing crimes. Perhaps most unexpectedly, Clark Kent finally found a steady girlfriend after while dating Lisa Davis. Clark's relationship with Lisa encouraged him to open up more about his life and embrace being a human more than just being a superhero. Meanwhile, Superboy maintained his 30th century contacts. Superboy and his Legionnaire friends teamed up to thwart Lex Luthor from the 20th century and a 30th century thief named Nylor Truggs. In the Legion's time period, Superboy was present for one of their most harrowing adventures as Superboy and friends fought to prevent monstrous creatures called the Servants of Darkness from stealing objects of supernatural power,
as well as draining the powers of the Legion's old enemies. Superboy and the Legion discovered that the Servants of Darkness were distorted clones of dead heroes, including one created in Superboy's image. The Servants' true goal turned out to be the resurrection of Darkseid, who then went on to enslave the 3 billion natives of Daxam and forge them into a universe-conquering army. Fortunately, a baby that uh, a baby that manifested on another planet rapidly aged to adulthood and proved to be the incarnation of the Highfather, who empowered Superboy and Supergirl to fight Darkseid. Even the might of the two Kryptonian super cousins proved insufficient, though, but Darkseid was forced to retreat when the Legion broke his control over his Daxamite army. During Clark's teenage years on Earth, the Kents had sold their farm, became shopkeepers in Smallville, and settled into a more modern lifestyle, supporting Clark's day-to-day life as well as his superhero activities. Sadly, it was the destiny of Jonathan and Martha Cunt to die, and for Clark to be unable to save them in spite of his enormous power. While on a vacation on Caribbean Island, Jonathan and Martha uncovered a buried chest containing scraps of an incomplete diary. Deciding to humor his parents' curiosity about the diary, he took them back in time to the day that the diary was written, where they witnessed Pegleg Morgan being stranded on the same island by Blackbeard. Superboy and the Kents returned back to their own era, but Jonathan and Martha fell deathly ill and went into comas. Doctors correlated the symptoms to the fever plague, a tropical disease with no cases since the pirate times. Realizing that his parents would not have contracted the plague if not for their time traveling, Clark tried to treat them with traditional herbal medicines, but no avail. He also accepted the help of Lex Luthor, who made a healing ray, but even Lex Luthor's genius was inadequate. Clark attempted to give the Kents blood transfusions, only to discover it was ineffective due to the plagues. Finally, Clark resorted to using the Phantom Zone projector to preserve the Kents, but sunspot activity had caught unusual defects and it wasn't working. Traumatized by guilt, Clark bore witness as Martha Kent died, and John Wake awoke from his coma, telling him that he did his best. With that, Jonathan Kent passed away, leaving Clark truly alone. The deaths of Clark's foster parents happened to roughly coincide with his high school graduation, and he made the decision to go to college. A series of events seemed to Superboy to suggest MU, which made him go to Metropolis University. Clark and Lana both separately moved to Metropolis to pursue a journalism degree, while Clark decided that he should stop being Superboy for a while so that this coincidence of Superboy and Clark Kent being in Metropolis wouldn't reveal his identity. In his freshman year, Clark and Lana shared a dormitory with happy-go-lucky Tommy Lee and Ducky Ginsburg, both of whom became friends. Using his superpowers covertly, Clark stopped a couple groups of burglars from robbing students by faking a bomb scare. Although Superboy was never seen, Inspector Henderson intuitively recognized that the boy of steel had finally came to Metropolis. Nevertheless, anticipation for Superboy to reappear led to a wave of mass hysteria as reports flooded from nearly every major city that Superboy was living there. Just as he got the scoop on Superboy's origin, Perry White was the first individual to learn that Superboy was living in Metropolis. Perry had eavesdropped on a conference held by the mob council, crime boss Weed, and was found by the gangsters, only for Superboy's invisible assistance to help Perry avoid a hail of bullets. Perry found that one of the fired bullets had been melted in midair, although Daily Planet editor-in-chief George Taylor refused to be convinced unless Superboy came to his office personally. After watching Superboy down two rival gangs who were fighting in an empty football stadium, Perry managed to coax Superboy into giving Taylor a personal visit, and the Planet got the exclusive on Superboy's public relocation to the big city. One of Clark's early Metropolis exploits would involve thwarting a scheme by Lex Luthor to manipulate a computerized banking system to make illicit transfers and withdrawals. Later, Clark would meet and fall head over heels for handicapped foreign student Lori Lamares, who he would have dates on with multiple occasions. In addition, he rapidly made friends with fellow student Billy Kramer. Clark entrusted Billy with the secret of his double life and bequeathed him a supersonic whistle to summon him. But unfortunately, Billy was killed in the process of rescuing a child from a burning building while Superboy was off fighting crime. Once more, Clark would experience the guilt of failing to protect those important to him. To compound Clark's grief, Lori informed Clark that they would no longer be together and that she would be leaving America. Clark investigated Lori's background out of concern and found out that she was secretly a mermaid from Atlantis. Lori also revealed that she knew that from her concealed telepathy that Clark was Superboy. Eventually, they found a valley full of people, and they saved them. Luthor made his comeback in spectacular fashion, launching a network of satellites into orbit around the Earth, which would beam enough energy into Lex to make him Superboy's physical equivalent. Hijacking every broadcasting frequency the world over, Luthor presented Superboy with an ultimatum: face him one-on-one, or watch as the entire planet exploded. Even with Luthor's new advantage, Superboy won the day and brought Lex Luthor to prison. This victory would serve as a line of he won. Feeling as though as he had experienced enough that he was no longer a kid, Clark Kent changed his superhero alter ego from Superboy to Superman.
Randomly to somewhere else, you actually get to follow him through the window this time. You get to experience what he's experiencing. Look at the clowns firing at them. It's like you're in a live-action video game, to a point where every time I drive a lower whacker, I can't help but get a little bit of an adrenaline rush because I always think of this scene.
Deciding fairly early on that he needed a secret base, Superman created the Fortress of Solitude in orbit around the Earth.
But they were used only when they had to be. They went the extra mile.
Afterwards, Superman chose to relocate the fortress to an area near the Earth's core. That also didn't work out. So he moved his under the sea, but that also didn't work, so he put it in the Arctic. Within the fortress, Superman created halls dedicated to his best friends and worst foes. The next step was for Clark Kent to put his journalism degree to use by using a newspaper in the big city, or by finding one. Eventually, he hired the Daily Planet. Over the next few years, Clark and Perry would develop a healthy mutual respect, with Perry White never once thinking that Clark Kent was Superman. However, Clark rubbed off against Lois Lane the wrong way, and Lois Lane didn't like him. Despite that, Lois eventually realized that Clark might be Superman, though Clark would often use his powers to make some alibi. Lois still kept her suspicions, though. Copyboy and staff photographer Jimmy Olsen became Superman's best pal. Like Lois, Jimmy also went on his own series of adventures, although many involved strange or unusual transformations. Once his reputation as Superman's pal became widespread, a fan club for Jimmy became worldwide.
He does go back and forth between creating something and just spreading madness that I think it kind of equates itself. But don't worry.
When a Kryptonian rocket lands in the town of Midvale, Superman investigates and finds his cousin Kara. Eventually, Superman learned that Kara came from a community of Kryptonians stranded in space called Argo City, which survived the destruction of Krypton, but would still die later on. Kara was sent to Earth, much in the same way that Kal-El was, by her mother and father. On Superman's advice, Kara took the human identity, Linda Lee, and went to the orphanage. Eventually, she had her own adventures as Supergirl, and from time to time would work with her cousin. After escaping a plot by a Kandorian named Lesla Lar, Supergirl proved herself to Superman and was presented to the world as his partner and equal. Lex Luthor continued to be a source of problems for Superman, especially in his early career. Luthor created a suit that drew on Superman's power, used a serum to turn himself into a kryptonite man, teamed up with the Joker to discredit Superman as well as Batman and Robin, summoned Hercules from the mythical past, created a cannon that could absorb Superman's power, raided Fort Knox in an attempt to lure Superman out, faked an alien invasion to lure Superman into a trap, and blasted Superman with a ray that created another Bizarro. Luthor even created his own answer to Superman's Fortress of Solitude in the form of Luthor's Lair, a concealed hideout within a museum building whose construction Luthor had funded under a false identity. The main defining feature of Luthor's lair was a hall of heroes containing statues of Genghis Khan, Attila the Hun, Captain Kidd, Al Capone, and other infamous outlaws. Luthor vowed to add his own statue to the gallery,
I love this
once he
because it
killed
represents
Superman.
how now he can't play tricks. He can't make his own luck.
When the location of this lair was found out by the police, Luthor used a hidden rocket within the building and escaped to an alien planet. Superman was forced to play the role of Luthor's advocate so that Luthor could be returned to Earth. Luthor exploited his situation and became a space pirate. However, Luthor's creatures revolted against him and sacrificed themselves to defeat him. On another occasion, Luthor made communication past the time barrier and recruited the 30th century's Legion of Supervillains to help him kill Superman. The alien invader Brainiac descended upon the Earth to shrink its major cities and host them in bottles, making an enemy out of Superman. In his quest to restore the cities of Earth, Superman was hit by Brainiac's shrink ray and found the tiny Kryptonian city Kandor. Superman restored the Earth cities to their places and was ready to use the last of powering Brainiac's shrink ray to bring Kandor back. However, Kandor's Professor Kimda took the decision on his city's behalf to resize Superman instead, causing Kandor to stay in a bottle. Superman put Kandor in the Fortress of Solitude, vowing one day to bring it back. Sometime later, Kandor was turned against Superman by a rogue scientist, Than Ole, who claimed to have developed a method to resize Kandor himself. Superman and Jimmy Olsen had to adopt new identities inside the city, known as Nightwing and Flamebird, inspired by their contacts by Batman and Robin. Nightwing and Flamebird proved that Thanos' enlargement ray would destroy Kandor. Superman was confounded by the appearance of a third Bizarro created by Lex Luthor. Bizarro kidnapped Lois Lane out of attraction towards her, keeping her on a remote island, and created another Bizarro. When the fourth Bizarro turned hostile, Superman helped the third Bizarro defeat him and used the duplicator ray to create a Bizarro Lois Lane so that they could be happy. Sometime later, Bizarro and his bride colonized an uninhabited world and created plenty of Bizarros on Bizarro World.
One long climax, where after the Joker kidnaps Anthony Michael Hall, you don't want to be in the game. Get out now.
Superman ran afoul of the cyborg killer Metallo when the villain started raiding government uranium deposits. Metallo planned to upgrade from uranium to green kryptonite and created a trap to try and get the green kryptonite and also kill Superman. However, Superman managed to outsmart him and Metallo died.
And second, this is where the movie stops being great and instead just becomes good. We're introduced to this idea of Batman using everyone's cell phones to track everything. This alone could be an interesting movie instead of just the last half hour.
Superman freed Phantom Zone prisoner Queck's eye once his sentence was up, but Queck's immediately sent a plan into motion to try and take Superman's powers away. Meanwhile, Superman and Supergirl learned that Queck's was innocent of the crime he was convicted of. Unable to go through with the plot, Queck's took the brunt of the gold kryptonite and died. Well, actually, lost his powers and memories. Superman helped the Amnesiac create a new life for himself and got him a job at the Daily Planet. The Superboy Revenge Squad continued to hound Kal-El under the new name of the Superman Revenge Squad. Their schemes included things like trying to drive Superman insane, stranding him on a far future Earth, turning a robot against him, and replacing his friends and allies with robots. Lois Lane was Superman's main romantic interest after making his debut in Metropolis, though their relationship was often one-sided, though Superman always cared for Lois and came to her rescue. On top of that, Superman suspected on many occasions that Lois was more interested in him being popular than him as a person. Lois's reporter's instinct led her on a quest to find his secret identity, which she thought was Clark Kent, but Superman's extremely negative response to Lois's prodding complicated their relationship. Lana Lang continued to be an important presence in Superman's early years, becoming a news anchor. Often Lana would compete with Lois for Superman's hand in marriage, though at some level both knew that he would never take either of them. Lori Lemaris also returned to Superman's life, with Clark first renewing contact to her after pursuing rumors of a mermaid. After Fisherman's harpoon injured Lori, Superman scoured the stars for a surgeon on an aquatic planet. Eventually, her life was saved, but she married the doctor who saved her, but would encourage Superman and Lois to get together. On an accidental trip through time to Krypton several years before its destruction, Superman fell in love with the actress Laia Lero. Tragically, any permanent romance between the two was not to be, as Krypton's looming death was coming soon. Superman's struggle with Lex Luthor grew more complicated when a battle between the two on a desert planet in a red sun system led to Luthor's discovery of a population of natives. Although Superman defeated Luthor, Luthor succeeded in giving the natives lots of their own advanced technology. The natives viewed Luthor as a hero and named the planet Lexor. Far from giving up, Luthor teamed up for the first time with Brainiac, hatching a plan to reduce Superman in size and remove his powers. Luthor and Brainiac actually were successful and had Superman at their mercy, but Kandor's secret Superman emergency squad reversed their plan. Not beholden to the Kandorians' obligations, Superman pursued Luthor back to Lexor, whose people elevated Luthor as the ruler of the planet and ran afoul of Luthor's superpowered alter ego, the Defender, in the process of confiscating harmful radioactive jewel samples. Superman and Luthor made a truce to get rid of the jewels, but Luthor broke the truce and to strike back at Superman. But he was defeated. This did not stop him from returning to Lexor, marrying his beloved Ardora, and faking his own death. Superman lost his powers to the trail of an irradiated comet and enlarged one of the Kandorians to take his place. However, the Kandorian was more interested in grandstanding than fighting injustice, so Superman had to fight Luthor and Brainiac with no powers. Fortunately, he made an example of himself, and the Kandorian sacrificed his life to save Superman and give his powers back. Later, Superman returned to Lexor in pursuit of Luthor, disregarding that he was denied entry. In the process, Superman accidentally revealed to Ardora that Luthor was known as a criminal on Earth, causing her to become estranged from Luthor. In revenge, Luthor teamed up with Brainiac again to cripple Superman with insecurity. But Superman got the upper hand. In addition to the Luthor-Brainiac alliance and Luthor's political power on Lexor, Superman increasingly faced more powerful and deranged villains. When resentful custodian Joe Meach became a composite Superman in a freak accident, he upstaged Superman, Batman, and Robin multiple times and threatened to force them into retirement. When Superman and the dynamic duo rose to stop the composite Superman despite the threat, the composite Superman still managed to defeat them, only being done in by the temporary nature of his powers. A vengeful alien named Zan restored the composite Superman powers a few years later, and the villain once again almost defeated Batman and Superman. However, a sudden change of heart motivated him to take a lethal laser blast and die. Another embittered blue-collar worker, Max Jensen, was turned from nobody to nightmare after opening a radioactive waste container. Transformed into the Parasite, he absorbed Superman's powers and memories, including his secret identity, and went on a rampage. Like composite Superman, Parasite was too strong for Superman to beat. Instead, the Parasite overloaded on life force from Superman and killed himself. But the Parasite was brought back to life by a well-meaning alien traveler who was murdered. The Parasite then adopted a false identity and tried to kill Superman one more time. But Superman recognized Parasite earlier and set him up in a trap and defeated him. The anti-Kryptonian xenophobe Amalek challenged Superman on Earth with the creation of 4 elemental beings in a ray. Amalek later manipulated an alien space explorer into attacking all Kryptonian survivors on Earth, but Superman stopped him. Space pirate Grax stole the force field of his rival Brainiac and used it to contain Superman. Luckily, Brainiac helped Superman defeat Grax and save Earth out of pure spite. The Superman Revenge Squad awakened an invincible robot Goliath named Eterno from its slumber at the Earth's core to draw it into a confrontation. Superman had to contend with Zavam, a being sent by the gods of Olympus to punish Superman. Superman then fought a new villain named the Annihilator and his sidekick when the two went on a rampage in Washington, D.C. Beyond merely fighting supervillains, Superman remained troubled by persistent fears that his judgment might one day be insufficient to command the use of his powers, and someone might get hurt. Superman's inability to stop the entirely preventable death of a cave explorer shattered his self-esteem and caused him to resettle on a planet named Moxia. But eventually, Superman came to terms with his destiny as protector, but left Moxia with its own superhero robot. Superman faced charges of homicide in an American court for the first time when a cunning criminal syndicate framed the Man of Steel, but Superman proved his innocence and found the true culprit with the help of Batman. However, the closest Superman was to retiring for good was when the Superman Revenge Squad framed him for a series of crimes and nearly convinced Superman himself that he was responsible. Superman's closest brush with death began when Clark was captured by criminal ventriloquist named Ventor, who collaborated with Lex Luthor to reverse engineer the Kryptonian leprosy virus, and brainwashed Clark Kent into infecting Superman with it, not realizing that Clark himself was Superman. Breaking free of the mental programming after injecting himself, Superman gradually manifested the hideous virus and decided to launch himself into Flambron, the hottest sun of the universe, to die. By a twist of fate, the denizens of Bizarro World were Superman's saviors as they shot a collection of red and white kryptonite into space in the flight path of his rocket and destroyed the virus. Superman faced a nightmare from the past when Black Zero, the alien destroyer of worlds who destroyed Krypton, decided to destroy Earth next. Having never encountered an enemy before of such power before, Superman was forced to release his enemy from the Phantom Zone, Jax-Ur, to help him save the planet. Jax-Ur possessed his own reason for hating Black Zero, as, Black Zero destroyed Jax-Ur's planet and his entire race. Superman's abilities were put to the test when Superman had to anticipate the trajectory of an antimatter dart bomb fired from Black Zero's spacecraft and bore a hole straight through the Earth just sufficient to permit the Doomsday projectile's passage through. Succeeding at his task, Superman was nearly killed by the detonation of the bomb outside of Earth's orbit. Superman returned to find that Jax-Ur had killed Black Zero to exact vengeance for Krypton, but Jax-Ur had no problem surrendering and going back to the Phantom Zone. Superman delved into an introspective exploration of his own mortality when the Time Trapper kept him from returning to the present-day world after a time travel jaunt to millions of years in the future. The Trapper's goal being to drive Superman insane with grief, Superman witnessed the development of Earth and a galactic civilization over an unimaginable time span, seeing the very legend of Superman rise and fall with the ages and the Earth's surface become uninhabitable as a result of a conflict between superpowered alien visitors before finally witnessing the end of all life on Earth itself. Though Superman split the planet in half and attempted to geoengineer the hemispheres to create the conditions for life to evolve anew, the Man of Steel was still broken, and Superman was driven into despair and became suicidal. Only a cosmic fluke that swept Superman beyond the end of time managed to restore Superman to his time period, owing to the theory of the time stream as a recursive loop. While Superman went on as before, no more could Superman have total confidence in his indestructibility. Clark Kent's life experienced a reshuffle when Morgan Edge, the president of the Galaxy Broadcasting System and secret leader of the Intergang, purchased the Daily Planet from its previous owners. Clark objected when Edge paired Jimmy Olsen up with Newsboy Legion and sent them on an assignment to the Wild Area, an area on the outskirts of Metropolis inhabited by various outcasts of society. When Intergang tried to assassinate Clark later that day, Clark suspected Edge of ulterior motives and pursued Jimmy as Superman. Superman stopped Jimmy and the Newsboys from unwittingly smuggling a bomb into the Mountain of Judgment, but he was forced to reveal the existence of the DNA Project. Afterwards, Superman defended the project facilities from any DNA aliens created by the evil factory. Driven by a creeping sense of alienation from Earth, Superman sought out the Forever People to investigate their claims of hailing from a super town where everyone had powers. Superman joined the Forever People in their quest to rescue beautiful Dreamer from Darkseid. Out of gratitude, the Forever People opened a boom tube for Superman, leading to New Genesis, but Superman turned down the offer. Morgan Edge and Ugly Mannheim of Intergang, Simeon and Mokrai of the Evil Factory, and Desaad all tried to eliminate Superman, Jimmy, the Newsboy Legion, and Lois Lane to keep them from stopping Darkseid's plans. On one such occasion, Clark deliberately stepped into a trap meant to kidnap Jimmy to Apocalypse, catching a glimpse of both Apocalypse and New Genesis from space. While Jimmy was on an overseas assignment, Superman, the Guardian, and Double X discovered an underground tunnel network beneath the foundations of Metropolis and determined that Darkseid's servants had built the tunnels to be able to coordinate another strategic strike at the Project Labs. While Superman was attacked while exploring the tunnels by a new god named Magnar, causing a brief fight as each combatant thought the other to be working for Darkseid. When the misunderstanding was cleared up, Superman followed Magnar through a boom tube to New Genesis and explored Supertown, marveling at the life and culture of new gods. However, Highfather reassured Superman that he belonged on Earth. Meanwhile, Morgan Edge flew into a desperate rage when an uncanny lookalike escaped from prison cell, hidden behind his penthouse here. Eventually, the lookalike found refuge in a farming community run by the Outsiders bike gang and confided in Jimmy Olsen that he was the real Morgan Edge, whereas the other one was actually a clone. The edging clone attempted to maneuver Intergang hitmen into killing the real Edge, but Darkseid abandoned the clone for disobeying his orders by failing to kill the original Edge. While Superman rounded up the intergang thugs in the galaxy, former Daily Planet building, Darkseid created a circumstance for the Edge clone to be accidentally killed by himself, or by his own hitman. Superman's life was transformed yet again when the explosion of an experimental green kryptonite reactor caused a chain reaction, resulting in the accelerated decay of all kryptonite. Meanwhile, Morgan Edge assigned Clark Kent full-time duties as the WGBS 6 o'clock news anchor, removing him from print journalism. Later that night, a mysterious double of Superman materialized from the sand of the desert surrounding the site of the kryptonite reactor explosion. The Sand Superman encountered his flesh and blood counterpart while Superman was on a mission, causing the Man of Steel excruciating pain while trying to take his powers. When Superman's powers later started disappearing one by one, Superman wondered if the Sand Superman was to blame. Still, it turned out to be the doing of a villain named Ferlin Nixley, using a mystical item called the Devil's Harp. Superman was hit with a dilemma when he accidentally contracted a deadly space plague, yet had to intervene in South America to save Lois Lane. Learning that the energy blast caused by making contact with the Sand Superman decontaminated parts of his body, Superman found Sand Superman and thrust himself directly at him, creating a burst large enough to eradicate the plague. Superman rescued Lois, but his powers were weakened, while those of the Sand Superman were increased enormously. Gaining the ability to speak, Sand Superman warned his body template that while Superman would recover from his weakness, it would not be a complete recovery. Operating at subnormal power levels, Superman barely stopped a desperate terrorist from detonating an H-bomb with a magma center chamber deep within the Earth's crust. Diana Prince's new mentor, I Ching, somehow knew of Superman's troubles and offered to conduct a ritual where Superman's astral form would be extracted from his body and he'd be able to reclaim his power from the Sand Superman. Superman and I Ching were attacked by the anti-Superman gang grunts before the ritual. While a powerless Superman proved sufficient to knock the Hoods unconscious, he was inflicted with a brain injury. I Ching continued with the ritual until Superman had reclaimed 2/3 of his power. Unfortunately, Superman's brain injury could not be healed, causing him to become irrational and make blunders. The Sand Superman used the rest of his power to tear open a portal to go to another dimension. Two thugs took advantage of Superman's powerlessness by beating him unconscious, leaving him to be found by Jimmy Olsen, I Ching, and Diana Prince, as Superman was hospitalized and brain surgery was performed to fix his head trauma. At the same time, I Ching explained to Jimmy and Diana that the War Demon and the Sand Superman were spirit beings from another dimension. Superman's post-surgical recovery was interrupted when the War Demon came back to finish him off, but this gave Superman the chance to reabsorb the last of his power from the Sand Superman. The Sand Superman then prepared to battle with the real Superman. Still, I Ching showed him the imaginary scenario where their clash destroyed the Earth, and Superman returned peacefully and allowed Superman to take the last of his power back. Clark learned of the vigilante Thorn when she announced her mission to combat the crime syndicate known as the 100. Shortly after, he encountered Thorn in person as Superman, first teaming up to save Lois Lane from being killed by a gang of escaped convicts. Superman and Thorn teamed up once again to expose the 100 when they used a hate group as a front to drive protesters from Metropolis's Little Africa district off a high-rise project. Superman and Lois broke up a conspiracy run by the 100 in South America to steal Pentagon-commissioned blueprints for a nuclear weapon. Tragically, Lois's sister Lucy fell in with the 100 and was murdered while attempting to escape. Lois stayed in Argentina for 6 weeks to grieve. At the end of those 6 weeks, Lois returned to America more determined, confident, and fiercely independent than ever. Lois's first decision was to search only the stories she felt had personal relevance. She also resolved to be less dependent on Superman. While searching for a new apartment, she broke her first freelance story, exposing a retirement village scam. The interference of Lois Lane in 100's recent activities brought her to the attention of the Thorn, who, aside from recognizing her bravery, realized the utility of having Superman's girlfriend on their side. At Thorn's behest, Lois fed a story to the Daily Planet about Thorn having a master plan to put the remaining 77 of the 100's chief membership roster in coffins as a tactic of misdirection. At the same time, Thorn and she searched the bay and scuba gear for one of the 100's discarded contraptions, a prototype of a mother box designated Carl 1, which the 100 had snatched from Intergang. Superman and Lois reactivated Carl to print out information about the organizational secrets of the 100, revealing that the core of the organization consisted of 10 separate divisions with 10 specialists. Superman and Lois put that information to good use and took out the 100. In his new capacity as WGBS anchorman, Clark was effectively distanced from most of his peers. Clark first met arrogant football quarterback Steve Lombard while on an assignment to interview him about his career. Superman later fought a phantom quarterback entity created by an experimental healing ray. Steve retired from football after admitting that he took credit for a victory handed to him by the intervention of the entity. Still, to Clark's chagrin, Morgan decided to hire Steve on as a sportscaster. Steve repeatedly used his position to tease and bully Clark for his amusement. But while Clark Kent may have had to take Steve's abuse, Superman didn't. As such, Clark would secretly use his powers to repay Steve. On one occasion, Steve tricked Clark into pretending to be his roommate to impress Steve's visiting aunt. Actor Gregory Reed first encountered Superman under less than ideal circumstances, using black magic to strike at Superman. Gregory had been playing Superman in the movies for years, but was deformed in a stunt accident. However, Superman forgave Gregory and encouraged him to keep taking roles. Undergoing facial reconstructive surgery to make himself genuinely look like Superman, Gregory resumed his career. He began to raise money for charity by dressing up as Superman for sick children. A trip to Maine for a story brought Superman into a chance encounter with the latter-day Viking warrior, Vladimir of the Flame, and his hidden Nordic village of Valhalla. After an initial misunderstanding, Superman and Valdemar agreed to part as friends. Superman met the jovial sailor Captain Strong after Strong was manipulated by a corrupt businessman into handing over a sample of Sancha, the psychoactive alien seaweed that Strong used to get superpowers. After realizing this deception, Captain Strong flew into a rage fueled by his consumption and fought Superman. Superman supported Captain Strong through rehab, and they became friends. Vartox, the hero of the planet Valoron, first came to the attention of Superman after the murder of a Metropolis shop clerk resulted in the death of Vartox's wife. Vartox ran a computerized simulation of a scenario in which Vartox attempted to seize the murderer on Earth without respecting Superman's jurisdiction, with a destructive battle taking place and the accidental death of Lois Lane. Tailoring his approach correspondingly, Vartox did not announce his arrival on Earth and used deception to convince the killer to submit to punishment on Valoron. Only afterward did Vartox reveal his existence to Superman. Both heroes appreciated their parallel roles on their respective worlds and would have many future interactions. While Superman's circle of friends grew, so did the size and threat of his rogues gallery. One of Superman's most fearsome foes, the Galactic Golem, was created by Lex Luthor. The space desperado Terra Man came to Earth on Superman's birthday to kill Superman. A new Toyman also made his debut, inspiring Superman to bring his reformed predecessor Winslow Shaw out of retirement. Superman was then frustrated by the appearance of a superhero competitor named Blackrock, who took to attacking Superman to get ahead. As it turned out, Blackrock was actually Sam Tanner, president of United Broadcasting Company. Superman faced an identity crisis when an intergang assassin robot proved nearly capable of killing him. Clark soon determined that he still possessed all his powers while in costume, but lost them if he was Clark Kent. Clark suspected that his power loss might be subconscious, as he realized he no longer could deal with a double life. Acting on this theory, he spent a full week as Clark Kent and a full week as Superman to decide which one was the true self and the other was unnecessary. After stopping Intergang from unleashing a weapon that would have destroyed the city, Superman began living as just Clark Kent. Without acting the meek and timid persona to deflect suspicions about his Superman identity, Clark acted more assertively and confidently, impressing Morgan Edge, frustrating Steve, and turning on Lois Lane. Clark fully embraced Lois' advantages, and they had several passionate nights together. Even without his powers, Clark tried to take down Intergang, learning the location of the Syndicate's rolling office from an underworld stoolie, and incapacitating the leadership. However, Superman began to suffer nightmares from the internalized anxiety of ignoring crime and disaster. Once the time for the full-time Superman switch came, he engaged in crime fighting non-stop, taking down Solar Man. At the end of the second week, the pressure of serving as a superhero became too exhausting, making Superman realize that he did need both lives. Superman then deduced that Clark Kent's reclusive neighbor, Mr. Xavier, was actually the one who took his superpowers. Xavier was actually an alien named Xavier, who had planned the destruction of Earth and pursued Superman throughout his whole life.
We're introduced to Bruce Wayne out of costume this time. I love that our introduction is him not always knowing who he is.
Could you tell me which of these guys is Bruce Wayne?
Eventually, Superman managed to save the day, though. Superman tackled the threat of the Skull crime cartel as it muscled its way into Metropolis turf. In retaliation, Skull pulled strings with their industrial espionage agent Albert Michaels to frustrate Superman's connections with Star Labs, where Michaels held the chief administrative post. With Michaels' help, Skull boosted synthetic manufactured elements from a Star facility and used them to create artificial kryptonite, then engineered an accident to destroy the body of their operative Roger Corben, brother of the original Metallo. Skull transforms Roger into a new Metallo and sends him against Superman, but Metallo dies. Meanwhile, Clark took steps towards his relationship with Lois, realizing that Lois could find him genuinely attractive as long as he stopped pulling on the act. However, despite going on a few dates, Lois ultimately decided she didn't like Clark and stated she was going to move to Central City. Clark accompanied Lois to a news conference in Central City, mostly to say goodbye, when suddenly the reporters were struck by sickness. After a misunderstanding with Namek, Superman deduced that Amalek was responsible, using his plague-bearing pet creature, Jevik. Superman battled and defeated Amalek without violating his moral code. Amalek tried to goad him into doing so and used the properties of Namek's Rondor horn to cure the journalists. Afterward, Clark approached Lois with a proposal, desperate to somehow fix his relationship. Lois agreed only to the condition that Clark admits he's Superman, but Clark wouldn't do so. But she stayed in Metropolis for now. While returning to the scene of his fight with Namek, Superman came upon a Skull operation to recover kryptonite newly fallen to Earth. Superman traced a bunch of murders of Skull agents to the still living Roger Corben, who now wanted revenge on his old organization for turning him into Metallo. With Lois Lane's help, Superman captured Metallo and stopped Skull, further exposing Albert Michaels as one of the Skull members. Still, Michaels managed to escape and swore vengeance on Superman. Clark's routine was shaken once again when Morgan Edge revealed that he would host the evening news with a more mature Lana Lang. Superman then had to combat Solomon Grundy, but was revealed to be a duplicate created by the Parasite, and he also had to stop Parasite from ransoming Metropolis. During this adventure, he almost died, and he and Lois fell back in love. Albert Michaels returned as the Atomic Skull with a new plot to destroy Superman, attempting to contaminate the Earth's atmosphere with kryptonite and unleashing Titano the Super Ape. Superman saved the day anyway, and Michael was arrested. Meanwhile, Lana reignited her rivalry with Lois, though Lois felt that they should have outgrown such pettiness. Superman would eventually then fought Blackrock, Cobra, Kryptonoid, Prankster, Phantom Zoners, Whirlicane, Radion, the Protector, Carbrak, Dr. Light, Amazo, Microwave Man, Bizarro, the original Toyman, and Brainiac once again. Childhood acquaintance Carl Draper reappeared as a security consultant and created the Mount Olympus Correctional Facility to hold super criminals to impress Lana Lang. When Lana's preference for Superman led her to give all the publicity to the Man of Steel, Draper kidnapped Superman and Lana as the Master Jailer. With Lana's help, Superman defeated the Master Jailer. However, Superman rejected Lana, telling her that her feelings were not true love. When Lana's stubborn nature nearly got her killed, Superman saved her with help from Lois, who listened to Superman and helped him set up the criminals. Superman contracted Lois and Lana's attitude to explain to Lana that a relationship would never work between them. Lana eventually recovered from the pain of rejection and asked if they could be friends, which he agreed. Morgan Edge gave Clark a week of vacation time from his newscaster role, but also permitted Perry White to bring Clark back to do journalism. Clark's return to his old job allowed him to investigate the haunting of the Kent family home. After narrowly averting a catastrophe caused by a super microbe from Kandor, Superman put the finishing touches and restored Kandor. Unfortunately, though, Superman failed to account for the effect of resizing inorganic materials, which disintegrated the city. Still, they figured the residents of Kandor weren't angry and decided that they would rebuild without making the same mistakes they made prior, naming the new planet Rockin. When Pete Ross's son John was abducted by an alien race, Pete revealed to Clark what he knew for all their lives, that he had been Superboy. Superman set off to bring John back, only to be stopped by the Legion of Superheroes, who explained that John's presence on this planet was a necessity for the Legion of Superheroes founding. Pushed to an anguished acceptance, Clark took measures to guarantee John's safety and told Pete that John was dead. Driven to insanity, Pete uses technology from Lex Luthor's lair to switch bodies with a time-displaced Superboy and tried to kill Superman. In Pete's body, Superboy escaped from his bonds and brought Krypto into the fight to turn the tables before the mind swap and time travel were undone. Later, a contest between the Phantom Stranger and Tala for Clark and Pete's souls precipitated Superman's reevaluation of the situation and a resolution to reunite Pete with his son regardless of what the Legion told him. Using a pavilion erected in Superman's honor as a front, Lex Luthor hatched a scheme to kill and replace Superman. As Superman related his life story to a tour group, Luthor downloaded the memories into a clone's mind before dropping Superman through a trapdoor and preparing to detonate the pavilion with explosives which would kill everyone including Lois and Lana. Superman thinks of a way out of his predicament and fights Luthor, depowering Luthor's secret Superman clone, depowering him with gold kryptonite and exposing Lex Luthor. The clone eventually returned to battle the original Superman for the right to be Clark Kent, having built an artificial superpower armor. The clone hesitated, though, and was eventually defeated. Superman encountered a whole bunch of new threats, like NRG-X, Major Disaster, J. Wilbur Wolfingham, Superman Revenge Squad, Chemo, Amos Fortune, and Vandal Savage. As part of a deal made with powerful alien beings years before his death, Jonathan Kent came back for 30 hours to reconnect with Clark and see him as the fully fledged Superman. To maintain the stability of the timeline, the entire 30 hours were erased from everyone's mind. Destiny compelled Clark to give up Superman identity for a time so that Clark could learn to be a regular person. Superman nearly succumbed when he realized that Lois Lane and Lana were exposed to the fever plague again. Still, Clark was able to take advantage of and save them anyway. The alien tyrant Mongol introduced himself to Superman by threatening his friends' lives to coerce the Man of Steel into doing his bidding. At Mongol's behest, Superman sought out the crystal key to a planet-sized superweapon called Warworld, locating the key on Mars 2 and battling Martian Manhunter. Although Superman planned to use the key as a feint for Mongol to drop his guard, the villain overpowered and absconded with his prize. Superman and Supergirl headed out into space to stop Mongol before he could wreak untold devastation at the helm of Warworld, and together the Kryptonian cousins triumphed and destroyed Warworld, though Mongol escaped. The blast of Warworld's detonation sent Supergirl careening beyond the bounds of time and infinity in an unconscious state. Superman endeavored to follow by stressing his endurance to its limits, but the Spectre stopped him. Superman faced Mongol again when the dictator usurped control over Throne World to take control of a doomsday device. Superman finally captured Mongol in a pitched battle on the moon. Surviving his last encounter with Superman, Brainiac infiltrated the Fortress of Solitude and turned its contraptions against Superman. Superman turned the tables against Brainiac by taking control of the reprogramming process, giving Brainiac a new personality, causing him to feel guilt for his past crimes. Brainiac surrendered and went back into space, intent on making amends to everybody he had harmed. Some months later, one of Brainiac's abandoned projects, the Planet Eater, attempted to destroy Earth, prompting Brainiac to warn Superman. Despite the effort, Superman and Brainiac could not stop it by themselves, as the knowledge of its inner workings was sealed inside Brainiac's old memories. Out of options, Superman returned Brainiac to his evil self against his will. Still, this action backfired when Brainiac decided to use the Planet Eater to try and destroy Earth. Don't know what you thought would happen. Superman had to tear the Planet Eater from inside out with his strength, leaving Brainiac to die. On the quieter side of things, Clark supported a campaign by Lois to convince Morgan Edge to reinstate the Daily Planet Globe, as it stood tall over Metropolis. Well, initially reluctant, Edge eventually gave in, and everything was okay. Meanwhile, Clark's defeat of the TNT Trio, a gang of industrial saboteurs, led to the accidental exposure of one of the criminals to a nuclear reactor, and he turned into Neutron. Superman frustrated Neutron's campaign to assassinate the other two members of the TNT Trio, but was defeated and knocked unconscious. Neutron then decided to destroy Metropolis, trapping the city under a dome. Superman deduced the Daily Planet Globe had been converted into a nuclear device and managed to take out Neutron, and replaced the globe and saved Metropolis. Charlie Kowalski Charlie Questskill was driven by the other Phantom Zone prisoners, led by General Zod, into building a makeshift projector using cannibalized parts from Star Labs and releasing them, all while shunting himself and Superman into the zone. Zod and the Kryptonians under his command set in motion a plot to cause worldwide panic, neutralize the Justice League, and banish the entire Earth to the Phantom Zone and take over the world. While Supergirl, Batman, Wonder Woman, and Green Lantern struggled to combat Zod's minions, Superman and Quex Yui were led by Mon-El to a secret backdoor route. After undergoing a series of events that restored his memories, Quex sacrificed his life to the Aether, a demonic being at the core of the Phantom Zone, for Superman to escape back into the world and stop Zod. Superman was taken out of his element when the sorceress Serene recruited him into her conflict with her husband, Lord Satanus, for ownership of the mystic runestone of Merlin the Magician, which would grant either of the two power enough to defeat the other forever. Satanus ripped Superman out of the time stream. They drew him to a medieval English village to use Superman's invulnerable body to filter the magic of Merlin's runestone into a form that was usable by humans. Serene intervened and cast a spell that turned Superman into two people, each with a different power set, and left with the runestone. Satanus sent the non-invulnerable part of Superman back to his own time and erected a magical barrier against all known time travel. After spending several days in the struggle against small-time crooks like the Mole and Jackhammer and relying on the assistance provided by people like Cave Carson and Omega Men, the vulnerable half of Superman collapsed and seemingly died. Clark's apparent death disturbed Lana and unearthed feelings she didn't even realize she had. However, Satanus infused his life force into the invulnerable half of Superman and took possession of his body, causing Clark Kent to return mere seconds away from an autopsy. With no time to spare, the vulnerable half of Superman made use of Lois Lane's contacts to reach Rip Hunter and use his time sphere to circumvent Satanus' barrier. In the past, the two halves of Superman reunite into a single person and they stop Satanus and Serene, exiling them. Superboy had a... the fuck? This is not anything here.
I like that it's usually a low-level criminal who, in some versions, is never found, but it does tie things together pretty nicely.
Superman and, Superman would eventually join the Justice League, and plenty of different things would happen with that.
Superman would continue to try to protect the universe directly from various forces throughout all of his career, up until the war against the Anti-Monitor. It would be during this conflict that Kal-El would lose his cousin Kara. He would not recover from the loss of Supergirl. Like his Earth 2 counterpart, Superman decided to sacrifice his life to stop the Anti-Monitor, but was stopped by a sneak blow by the Earth 2 Golden Age Kal-El, who decided the younger and more powerful Superman would have a better chance at stopping him if the Golden Age's attack failed. The Golden Age Superman's attack, along with the assistance of Superboy Prime, succeeded, and the single surviving universe was survived. So Superman of Earth 1 returned to the singular Earth. He continued to be Superman until the time when he was erased from existence and recreated as a new individual with a new history. When he and those connected to him were recreated, the people of the new Earth lost all memories of all previous Superman, but he would still get known as Superman in this Earth. Two versions of him are taken to convergence, back when he was Superboy and when an imaginal member of the Legion of Superheroes, and the adult version of him. The 31st century Metropolis and modern-day Gotham are taken by Telos, and they are stripped of their powers. Back when he was Superboy, he and the Legion encounter Booster Gold, and assumes he is a villain and attacks him, but a character named Rip Hunter teleports them a few minutes in the future, and they escape. Meanwhile, when Brainiac reveals that unless the destruction of the original pre-crisis multiverse is prevented, the current multiverse will collapse into one universe, New Earth Kal-El asks to be sent back to the crisis along with Hal, Kara, and Barry. Lois and his baby son join him and are transported back to the first crisis by Brainiac. His final fate is unknown, as it seems he sacrificed himself. Okay, time to start the Bronze Age.
Everyone ran out of bullets. Back to punching. Casada runs out of the bar, and for some reason Daredevil allows him to leave, apparently so that he can run all the way back up to the roof and jump all the way back down again. As Daredevil walks down the stairs, the countdown time on the clock goes from 1:55 to 1:37 in the next shot. Supposedly a train is coming into the station.
So the beginning of the Bronze Age Superman's history is nearly identical to the Silver Age version. However, instead of discovering his powers when he was very little, Clark is basically normal, and as he grew up, he continued to gain his powers slowly. When he was 18 years old, his adopted parents revealed the Rocket and his foreign heritage, leading him to the decision to become a hero. He operated as a secret hero for 7 years until he was forced to save a space plane in front of people, meeting Lois Lane at 25 years old. He was attracted to her the moment they met and felt a spark, but a bunch of people asked him a bunch of questions. Deciding it was time for him to become a public figure, he created his costume, becoming Superman. During his first costume adventures, he also went to Metropolis University and worked at a restaurant for 2 years, where he met a woman named Ruby Carson. He eventually became a reporter for the Daily Planet and met Perry White and Jimmy Olsen, where he also did his first interview with Superman. The media coverage of Superman would eventually attract Lex Luthor, who tested Superman to try to get him on his payroll, but it didn't work. Eventually, he tried to murder Superman, and his company LexCorp would create Bizarro. Returning to Smallville after many years, Superman encountered another Rocket, but this time it was just a bunch of paperwork telling him the history of Krypton.
Okay, thanks, sir. No need to check anything else, I guess. Enjoy your flight. I don't know why anyone bothers to lock anything in movies when they can be unlocked by anything straight and metal. I understand the cop was found to be lying, but when a murder case happens, isn't there a team of detectives that check out the victim's apartment later? Shouldn't there have been evidence that Matt could look over without having to punch in?
Returning to Smallville at 25, he decided it was time to make a difference and became Superman,
You can already see with the radar viewing,
making sure he never wore a mask, and wore a bunch of what he based his costume on was his parents' traditional Kryptonian clothing.
So wait, this fight started while Matt was kissing Elektra, and then he leaves and supposedly goes to his apartment to put on the Daredevil costume.
Lex Luthor would announce to the media that he believed Superman was an alien. Testing this theory, he discovered Superman's weakness to green kryptonite. This fear-mongering climaxed in a staged Kryptonian invasion using troops and holograms, but Superman was able to end the attacks and prove that Luthor was lying.
And there are definitely no spare balls on the table right below this picture and near his coffee. But then after he shoots it, he suddenly has a couple spares sitting there so he can still have something stupid to do with his hands during the scene. Nothing bad is gonna happen. Promise. Nothing bad is gonna happen, I promise, cliche. So Bullseye was hired to kill Nachios, but how do you know that they would be in a limo going down the street at this very moment?
Over time, Clark would meet many of his other enemies, including Metallo, Bizarro. He would team up with Batman. He would fight Magpie. At one point, he and Batman would fight the Crime Syndicate and Deathstroke. Superman joined the Justice League with Batman, Wonder Woman, Flash, Green Lantern, Aquaman, and Martian Manhunter. He would fight people like Bloodsport, Chemo, and the Silver Banshee and the Fearsome Five. But his greatest enemy always stayed Lex Luthor. Superman would eventually have his first encounter with Darkseid, who teleported him to Apokolips. And eventually Superman went back to Earth. At one point, Superman dated Wonder Woman. After being contacted by her publicist Mindy Meyer, he immediately kissed her, something which shocked and amused her. He eventually apologized and admitted he had a crush on her, which made her a little uncomfortable as she was new to those things. After a crisis involving Darkseid, they decided they would just stay friends. A version of a young Lex Luthor from a pocket universe resembling pre-crisis Earth 1, back in the Silver Age, accidentally released General Zod, as well as a couple other Kryptonians from the Phantom Zone, and after they destroyed pocket dimensions, they were judged by Superman to deserve capital punishment and killed with green kryptonite. The guilt of taking a life weighed heavily upon Superman, with it being amplified further by Milton Fine. He had a psychotic breakdown, which caused him to unknowingly assume the identity of the Gangbuster. Superman decided after what he'd done that he had to leave Earth. After several adventures in outer space, Superman was captured by the artificial gladiator planet Warworld, and once again met Mongol in this universe. Superman fought against Draga, but he refused to kill Draga and was forced to fight Mongol. He rallied other fighters to his aid, and they beat Mongol and deposed him, replacing him with Draga. Having found peace with executing Zod and the other criminals, Superman returned to Earth. Once he returned, he battled the Eradicator, a sentient artifact he encountered that attempted to oppose its own designs on Earth. He defeated the artifact, buried it in the Arctic, and discovering that the Fortress of Solitude. The Eradicator, still active, began to melt some of the polar ice cap and mind-controlled Superman to change into Krypton Man. Though he caused havoc in his brainwashed state, Superman broke free from the programming with the help of his adoptive parent and hurled the Eradicator and his Krypton Man costume into the sun. Superman first encountered Brainiac in this universe when the alien sought to put his mind in the body of a human, Milton Fine. He attacked Superman, but Fine was able to temporarily overcome Brainiac's control. Brainiac was subsequently captured by Lex Luthor, gaining a new body and fleeing into space. Around this time, Clark proposed to Lois Lane and she accepted. He also revealed his identity to her. After a couple weeks, Lois found out that she was a little peeved to think Clark had been using his role as Superman to gain an advantage over her for years, and they kinda got a rivalry. A young man named Lex Luthor II, the son of Lex Luthor, who had seemingly gotten cancer and died, well, the original did, arrived in Metropolis and took over LexCorp. Superman investigated the man and believed his story, never realizing that the son was actually Lex Luthor and a clone. Brainiac would eventually return to Earth at the helm of Warworld. Threatened with total invasion, Superman rallied Earth's heroes and personally led the retaliation. In a massive battle, Brainiac was beaten and lobotomized, and Earth's heroes returned home. Superman then joined the new Justice League on a full-time basis. One day, a monstrous alien called Doomsday emerged in eastern Ohio and made its way towards Metropolis. The beast defeated the Justice League single-handedly. Superman battled the creature across several states, eventually landing in Metropolis itself. After a long, intense battle, Superman finally managed to defeat Doomsday, but he collapsed and died in Lois' arms. All attempts to revive Superman failed, and he was pronounced dead. Clark Kent was presumed to have been one of the hundreds killed in Doomsday's rampage. Superman was buried with full honors, with hundreds of heads of state and several 100,000 onlookers present beneath a large statue. The Justice League and other heroes marched behind the casket, following their leader one last time. Lois, Lana Lang, and the Kents were all devastated. Cadmus, a secret science operation, stole the body, but Supergirl retrieved it. Lex Luthor would gloat that even though he wasn't the one to kill Superman, by providing funding for the tomb, he at least got to bury him. Jonathan Kent, after having a heart attack, he saw Clark in the afterlife. Jonathan would recover from his heart attack and took this as a sign his son wasn't really dead. Despite this, 4 new heroes arrived in Metropolis, all claiming to be Superman. The Man of Tomorrow, the Last Son of Krypton, the Man of Steel, and the Metropolis Kid. A trip to the real Superman's tomb revealed it to be empty. Cults began to spring up in Metropolis, worshipping any one of the 4 new Supermen. President Bill Clinton was saved by the cyborg Superman and endorsed him as the real Superman. Lois, however, endorsed Steel. One imposter, the artifact known as the Eradicator that had battled Superman in the past, had actually returned and went to Superman's tomb to use his body. Sensing Superman's soul was still alive, the artifact created a new body in Superman's image and put Superman's body in a regeneration matrix full of sunlight in hopes of taking over his body once he revived. Despite this plan, the Eradicator accidentally convinced himself he actually was Superman. When Superman was finally revived, he was weak and powerless, but he went to Metropolis anyway. When he was revived, he was met by Lex Luthor II, Lois, and others, who were shocked when a black-suited Superman emerged and announced he was the real Superman. Upon learning that Coast City had just been completely destroyed by cyborg Superman, the real Superman joined with Superboy, Supergirl, and Steel to do battle with the cyborg. In the fight, Clark learned cyborg Superman's true identity, Hank Henshaw, and then Henshaw had planned to impersonate the hero and destroy the world, ruining his legacy. With all his powers returning, he defeated cyborg Superman. Superman returned to Metropolis and had to convince the city that he was the real Superman. Unfortunately, he had to reacquire the right to the name Superman, but after helping the young Superboy come to terms with his origin and accept himself as the new Superboy, the kid declared once and for all the real Superman as Clark. Superman, with the help of the shape-shifting Supergirl, managed to come up with a possible way of resurrecting Clark Kent, who had not been seen since Superman's death. Supergirl took Clark's form, and Superman pretended to find Clark in the rubble of a destroyed building. Jimmy got a picture of Superman and Clark side by side, proving they were different people. After weeks of returning to business as usual, saving Metropolis, Superman received a tip that the monster that killed him, Doomsday, was not dead and was actually on Apokolips. Suffering from nightmares of the creature, Superman went to Apokolips for a rematch. Superman pursued Doomsday when he escaped Apokolips to the planet Catalan and fought the beast to a standstill. Luckily, Superman was able to teleport Doomsday into the future just before the universe would end. This allowed him a little peace of mind, though he regretted having to kill somebody. Lex Luthor, whose cloned body was slowly decaying, attempted to clone Superman again, resulting in another Bizarro. Thinking that he was Superman, this version of Bizarro escaped from Luthor and kidnapped Lois Lane. Lois managed to escape from Bizarro World, a warehouse Bizarro had created Metropolis in, out of models. His memories fragmented, Bizarro flew into Smallville and tried to kidnap Lana Lang, but didn't understand why she resisted him. Superman arrived and drove Bizarro back to Metropolis, where Luthor reclaimed the clone and killed it. At the same time, Superman noticed his powers getting out of control. He was absorbing too much energy, and he began to get huge. After failed attempts to control the situation, Superman's only cure was allowing the parasite to attach onto him. Luthor, blaming Project Cadmus for his deteriorating clone body, orchestrated an all-out war between the Project and the Underworlders. The conflict spilled out into the streets of Metropolis, and even Superman had trouble containing it. Luthor went even further, detonating bombs all over the city, prompting an evacuation. Luthor and his army of clones discovered too late that their war was in vain and that the fallout from the missiles used to fight Cyborg Superman in Engine City was really to blame. Using the Guardian's DNA, Cadmus was able to create a cure, saving Superboy and the Newsboy Legion. Luthor ordered his army to try and steal the cure, nearly destroying Cadmus. Luthor's schemes were finally revealed to the world on live TV thanks to Lois Lane. Luthor threatened to launch missiles into Metropolis, but Superman talked him down. Another soldier, however, still launched them, destroying most of Metropolis. And Lex Luthor was taken to jail for life. Metropolis would lay in ruins for weeks, having to deal with several safeguards left in place by Luthor to continue causing it to be destroyed, as well as Luthor escaping jail and using Superman's old Kryptonian war suit. Though this Luthor was eventually captured by Superman and eventually became a vegetable. Thanks to Zatanna's magic and Superman's super speed and super strength, they were able to rebuild Metropolis. During a fight with Conduit, a new villain who hated both Superman and Clark Kent separately, Superman's former tomb in the park was destroyed, and it was discovered there was a dead body inside. This caused the world to wonder if Superman was actually a fraud. Superman investigated who of his villains would have done such a hoax, but after interrogating them, he realizes that Lex Luthor, the Eradicator, and Darkseid couldn't have done such a thing. Superman's grip on reality and his identity began to break down, causing his behavior to become more erratic. All of this was because the real culprit was Brainiac, who had recovered from being lobotomized and returned to Earth. When Superman finally learned the truth, he confronted Brainiac on the streets of Metropolis, but the villain escaped. Weeks later, Superman's life was turned upside down when Conduit learned that the two men he hated most, Superman and Clark Kent, were the same person. Conduit blew up the Kent's farmhouse, kidnapped Jimmy Olsen, attacked Lana Lane, and confronted Superman. After Conduit apparently killed Lois and the Kents, Clark, in his rage, decided he would no longer be Superman. Conduit challenged Superman to a one-on-one battle in a mock version of Smallville, but his rage during the fight resulted in Conduit killing himself. After the fight, Superman learned the Kents and Lois were not actually killed, and that their deaths had been faked. Clark reunited with his parents and questioned if he really needed a secret identity. But the conversation with Lois put things in perspective, and he realized that he needed to be Clark Kent too. After a battle with the parasite leaves him near death, Superman was arrested by Brute at the behest of an intergalactic group known as the Tribunal. Superman was brought into space and put on trial for the destruction of Krypton. The Tribunal argued that it was Superman's ancestors' fault Krypton was destroyed, and they believed that Superman should pay for Jor-El's failures. The Alpha Centurion rallied together a Superman rescue squad while Superman managed a jailbreak. After several adventures in space, Superman and the rescue squad all ended up on the Tribunal's homeworld, each captured by Cyborg Superman, working for the Tribunal. When the Cyborg betrayed the Tribunal, Superman saved all of its members, despite their guilty verdict, because it was the right thing to do. The Tribunal decided to commute his sentence and sentenced him to never give up his never-ending battle. Even though Lex Luthor, fully recovered from his failing clone body, was on the run, Superman's life was still troubled. After a number of factors, Lois decided that they would not be getting married. One of the reasons was that led to Lois was the fact that Superman refused to kill the Joker after the Joker threatened Lois. Superman reluctantly accepted their relationship was over and went to Smallville. Superman also had to deal with Brainiac returning, who switched his mind into Superman's mind into the body of a mental patient before briefly capturing all of Metropolis. He used the citizens of the city as a storage unit until Superman was able to breach his fortress. Eventually, they were able to fix all the body-swapping shenanigans. Lois, frustrated that she had become so reliant on Superman, decided to take a foreign correspondent position overseas and said goodbye to Clark.
Not long after, Perry White revealed to Clark that he would be taking leave of absence because he had lung cancer. In his absence, Perry promoted Clark to his position as lead editor of the Daily Planet. On the same night, Superman encountered Obsession, who went on a rampage after Superman did not return her affection, causing him to wonder if he'd been acting the same way towards Lois. Talos, an alien wizard Superman encountered, arrived on Earth and tried to collect Kandor. Superman managed to defeat the wizard, but was unable to free the Kandorians. When the field around Kandor began to destabilize, Superman took the city to the Fortress of Solitude. Superman's powers were briefly lost when the Earth's sun was threatened by the Sun Eater, forcing Earth's heroes to band together to fight it. After the world-ending threat with the sun had been resolved, Lois returned from her time abroad and reconciled with Clark, and they got engaged and proceeded to get married immediately. Lucy Lane threw Lois a bridal shower and a bachelorette party, while Clark had a bachelor party thrown at Ace of Clubs. Jimmy Olsen and Lucy Lane were chosen as best man and maid of honor. Perry White attending this ceremony, but he didn't feel well enough to make the reception. Batman revealed that an apartment building where Lois wanted to rent was owned by Bruce Wayne, so as a wedding gift, he purchased it for them. Lois and Clark went on a honeymoon in Hawaii, where Clark was kidnapped by terrorists and Lois rescued him. Meanwhile, Superman's old foes formed the Superman Revenge Squad, and when he returned, went after him. After a menace from No Man and an invasion by white Martians, Superman was one of the 7 new members of the new Justice League. Superman experienced a weird power fluctuation that rendered him in the form of pure energy. Needing a containment suit, he found he was faster and able to interact with computers. He also lost his vulnerability to kryptonite, but he was weaker to energy destruction and was no longer super strong. So when he changed back into Clark Kent, he lost all his powers. At this time, Perry White returned to Daily Planet with his cancer in remission, and Clark returned to being a reporter. Morgan Edge created a new Superman Revenge Squad and sicked them on Superman. Jimmy Olsen, meanwhile, believed he had figured out his best friend Superman's secret identity and planned to announce it on TV. Jimmy chickened out, though, and falsely announced that Superman did not have a secret identity, which caused him to be fired. The cyborg Superman and the Toyman joined forces in an attempt to destroy Superman's energy form, but Superman was turned into his second form, the aggressive Red, Superman Red, and the calm Superman Blue. A race of monsters known as the Millennium Giants were summoned on Earth, and they began to march over the world, causing havoc and destruction, obliterating the city of Theana-Naoge and most of the nation of Markovia in their path. The Justice League rallied to take up the fight, and the 2 Supermen were finally able to destroy the Giants, risking their lives. Not only was the Earth saved, but Superman was restored to his original form. Superman had another rematch with Doomsday. After a battle with Superman ruined his body, Brainiac managed to retrieve Doomsday and put his mind into Doomsday's body. With this new strength, he took down the Justice League. While delivering Lana Lang's baby to a hospital after she gave birth, Superman was ambushed by Doomsday with Brainiac's mind control, who kidnapped the baby. Fortunately, Superman was able to stop this plan, save the baby, and remove Brainiac's mind control from Doomsday. Brainiac turned into a new body, Doomsday was taken to the moon, ripped into pieces, and stored away. Hard times fell on the Daily Planet, and the owners reluctantly sold the company to Lex Luthor, who immediately fired everyone and shut it down. Jobless, Clark resumed his book writing career, but was horrified to find that the fictional situations he wrote about were coming true. Superman no longer became Clark Kent and stayed Superman 24/7. Believing even this wasn't enough, he built an army of Superman robots. Around this time, Superman offered Superboy, his partial clone, the genuine Kryptonian name of a distant relative of his, Kon-El. Superboy accepted. When Superman believed that Lex Luthor had been attempting to create synthetic kryptonite, the Man of Steel sliced LexCorp Tower in half, throwing the top of it into outer space. The SCU tried to arrest him, but Superman refused. The Justice League intervened and agreed that Superman had crossed a line. The Justice League were unable to defeat his army of Superman robots, and during the battle, it turned out that he was being manipulated by Dominus. While the UN declared war on Superman, Lois Lane managed to break into the Fortress of Solitude and remove the spell. Dominus regained control, though, and Superman robots attacked the UN building, and Luthor caused the orbiting half of his old tower to crash down on the fortress, destroying the Fortress of Solitude. Superman broke his hold and banished the supervillain to the Phantom Zone. Superman was back to normal, but the world was uneasy. Many people no longer trusted him, some questioning if he was indeed the real Superman. Superman realized that he would have to win back people's trust. When Brainiac 2.5 returned to Earth, planning on destroying the planet, Superman saved the day and gained everyone's trust. Near the end of the 90s, Lex Luthor sold the Daily Planet to Bruce Wayne for a singular dollar, but did not disclose why. The real reason was that Lois Lane made a deal with him, promising to bury one story, no matter what it was, in exchange for him giving the Daily Planet back.
Lois kept this secret even from Clark. Everyone was hired back. Jimmy came back, Lois came back, and Clark came back. That same day, Mongol arrived on Earth seeking help from Superman to deal with the threat of Imperiex. Superman began special training with Mongol. Concurrently, Jimmy discovered a photograph of Superman wearing a wedding ring. Superman confided in Jimmy that he was married, but wouldn't say to who, before going off into space. Superman and Mongol succeeded in stopping the Imperiex. Predictably, Mongol then double-crossed Superman, but Superman turned him over to Lobo. Unknown to Clark, the being defeated near Jupiter was not the true Imperiex, but one of his thousands of drones. On New Year's Eve of 1999, Lex Luthor planned a spectacular party in Metropolis to usher in the new year. Clark, Lois, and the Kents all attended. Unfortunately, Y2K actually occurred in this universe, all because of the arrival of Brainiac 2.5, who unleashed a computer virus that crippled the world's computers, leading all the world's heroes to desperately try to keep the peace. Superman and Green Lantern had to go into orbit to stop nuclear missiles launching. Even though Earth's heroes managed to defeat Brainiac, a future version of Brainiac called Brainiac 13 came back in time to continue the mission and upgrade the Earth. Brainiac 2.5, on the verge of death, downloaded his consciousness into Lex Luthor's daughter, Lena Luthor. Superman was only able to stop Brainiac 13 by utilizing a Kryptonian battlesuit. However, while his plan had been to trap Brainiac 13 in the suit, Lex Luthor made a deal with the Superman villain to give his daughter over and allowed Brainiac 13 to escape into space. In exchange for keeping Metropolis upgraded as this very real city of tomorrow, Superman vowed to find Lena, rescue her, and make Luthor pay. After the crisis, Superman worked with Steel to rebuild a new Fortress of Solitude. Superman briefly became deathly ill with a kryptonite cancer, but the Atom, Steel, Superboy, and Supergirl shrank down and removed the tumor. Sometime later, the kryptonite tumor would get stolen and become a villain named Cancer.
Reminding us of Ghost Rider's Spirit of Vengeance. I was going to give the movie a pass since it got through me and
Mr. Mixaplik made his return shortly. Thereafter, causing his greatest disaster ever when he visited the Joker and was tricked into giving the Joker 99.9% of his power. The Joker used the power to remake the entire universe in his image. Superman tried to rally the Justice League and his other allies in a struggle against the Joker, who was committed to torturing all of creation and then destroying it. He brutally killed Superman's friends and loved ones before his eyes. A surreal battle ensued before Superman managed to discover the rule that allowed him to defeat the Joker. The Joker could not exist if Batman didn't exist. Everything was put back as it was, with no one remembering what happened except for Superman. Batman, who had been horribly tortured by the Joker over and over, also remembered every minute of it, but Superman asked the Spectre to transfer the memories into the Joker. Lex Luthor, regarded as a national hero for his role in the past several crises, was elected president, with Pete Ross as vice president. With his arch-nemesis in the White House, Superman was understandably upset. Superman encountered a rocket ship from his father Jor-El in the field near his parents' house. The rocket contained a message giving a different history of Krypton than what he learned. Jor-El admitted he lied about the history of Krypton so that Clark would be a proud Kryptonian instead of thinking of them as dictators. Clark refused to believe that his family and heritage could be such awful people, and he found out that he could use the Phantom Zone to travel in time, so he decided to go to Krypton and learn the truth. He encountered a very different Krypton than he ever thought, though. But he still got along with his parents and Krypto, but they were attacked by General Zod. Superman and a traveling Lois Lane fled back to Earth, accompanied by Krypto, who also got superpowers. Krypto proved a little too excited for life in Metropolis, though, and after a fight with Mongol in which the dog almost killed somebody, Superman decided to take him to the fortress and have a robot babysit him. Signs began to appear of an impending intergalactic war with Imperiex in which Earth was bound to get dragged into. The Justice League rallied in space, taking on Imperix's scout drones, but were taken out one by one. Superman watched several of his friends fall and the apparent destruction of Atlantis. Every major superhero team on Earth began taking up arms against Imperiex. Even Superman fought with Doomsday, with the monster being revived by Steel and the Suicide Squad on orders from Lex Luthor, with each destroying dozens of probes before the real Imperiex Prime arrived. With battles against Imperiex drones taking place worldwide, Superman was distracted and missed his wife's call when her dad was attacked by the light at the White House. Her father would die. President Luthor suggested a plan to stop the invasion, with Superman merging with the strange visitor and assault Imperiex. insulting Imperiex. Following through, the plan was successful, and Imperiex died. However, the War World, under the command of Brainiac 13, arrived and absorbed Imperiex, continuing the invasion. Brainiac 13 also convinced Apocalypse that Earth had betrayed their peace treaty, causing Darkseid to also begin invading. Superman was so shocked by all the death and destruction that he flew into the sun and became supercharged. Using his own plan, he boom-tubed Warworld to the beginning of time, ending the war. Superman attempted to be sensitive to his wife, who was grieving over her father, but was commonly distracted by the rebuilding effort as well as many other issues plaguing the Earth. Superman would have to fight Jokerized versions of his enemies in a worldwide endgame plot organized by the Joker. Lois and her mother eventually traveled all throughout Europe, prompting more than one person back home to wonder if maybe Lois and Clark weren't getting along. Clark told Perry that their marriage was doing fine, but that she asked some space to grieve for her father, though she was spending a lot of time away and he wasn't really sure if they would stay together. As Lois and her mother prepared to come back to Metropolis, Lois decided that she didn't really want to be with Clark anymore. Ella stated that she's stuck by Sam because they couldn't solve any problem together and real marriages could last. Upon returning, she admitted that she felt it was Clark's fault her father died, but that she wanted to work through it with him. Around this time, Superman began to help at the store with his parents, and Luthor figured out Clark Kent was Superman. Lois Lane uncovered proof that Lex Luthor knew about the Imperiex invasion long before it occurred, but Luthor caused her to bury the story. However, she double-crossed Luthor, gave the story to Clark, and subverted their agreement. When the story came out, Luthor denied the allegations, and the Mind Skin by Martian Manhunter proved his innocence. Clark was fired, but Perry secretly kept him. Manchester Black returned and used his vast mind powers to orchestrate an all-out attack on Superman. Black mind-controlled an entire legion of supervillains to attack Superman's loved ones. Superman was forced to face all of his enemies at once to protect his family. Manchester Black murdered Lois in an attempt to force Superman to kill him. However, Superman refused. Black's ruse fell apart, and he revealed he never actually killed Lois. Having given up, Black used his mind powers to remove the knowledge that Clark Kent was Superman from Luthor and then committed suicide. Months after the incident, Lois discovered Clark was still working for the Daily Planet without telling her. Perry hired Clark back, but Lois quit to join Channel 3 News. Tracing a lead to a supervillain who had been organizing a plot against him for months, Superman confronted a man calling himself General before realizing it was General Zod. Superman, having flashbacks to when he executed Zod, refused to believe it was actually him. On the advice of Martian Manhunter, Superman began to start therapy. With his therapist, he explored his fear of Zod and the danger he posed. Though he avoided confronting his enemy, nevertheless, he was called to action when he found out Zod was using Bizarro as a punching bag. General Zod finally used his plan against Superman, revealing he somehow looked just like Clark Kent. Zod transformed Earth's yellow sun into a red sun and depowered everybody. Every hero on Earth. Zod took over the U.S. and killed President Luthor. Didn't kill him, but, roughed him up. With a common enemy, depowered Superman and President Luthor, as well as a slew of other depowered villains, teamed up to stop Zod. While Superman fought Zod, Luthor and Metallo returned the sun to its color. Zod tried to get Superman to kill him again, but Superman refused. Zod was reckless, and as the sun turned yellow, he committed suicide by accident. Superman later went to the future and battled a woman who pretended to be his daughter, who was actually an agent of Brainiac 12. When Superman returned to the present, he realized he was in a different timeline. One day, after being called into space by Green Lantern, he returned to find 1 million people missing, including Lois. Eventually, he found a man named General Knox, who accidentally caused 1 million people to vanish. A man claiming to work for the government, Mr. Orr, demanded Superman turn over the device that caused the vanishing, but Superman refused. Man of Steel realized that it was caused by a device he created, and it created a perfect city of the Phantom Zone, and would put people there. Superman discovered everyone was safe, and it was a trap by General Zod. Superman escaped Zod's attack and returned everyone to Earth. After this, Superman built another new fortress. Clark resumed his normal job, but he got a demotion with Jack Ryder replacing him. Clark was angry at Lois because she knew and didn't tell him. Clark's new position involved him tracking Metropolis' special crime unit, and Lois was sent overseas. While abroad covering dangerous war in UMEC, Lois and the squad she was with took fire from enemy combatants. In the crossfire, she was shot and killed. But she was brought back to life during emergency surgery, and the Justice League brought her to the Watchtower, where Dr. Midnight made sure she was okay. Clark stayed there with her the entire time until she recovered. The villain Ruin, in a grand scheme against Clark, transformed a brother and sister into new versions of the Parasite. The twins attacked Lois, and Superman borrowed a suit of armor from Steel to confront them. Once the Parasites were dealt with, Superman learned the Ruin's location and fought him. Ruin managed to beat Superman, though, and weakened him, and escaped to meet with Lex Luthor. Relationship drama began to develop between Clark, Lois, and Lana when Lana admitted to Clark so that she divorced Pete Ross and tried to make Clark reconsider being with Lois. A feud between the two women broke out in the Kent residence, and Ma Kent settled it by telling Lois not to take Clark for granted and telling Lana to leave him alone. While simultaneously investigating who Ruin was with Batman and Wonder Woman, Superman was contacted by his friend and Vice President Pete Ross, unaware that his wife wanted to divorce him. Pete requested Clark to speak to Lana because of her behavior. In the same series of messages, Lois contacted Clark and said that she wanted to have a baby. In the meantime, Lex Luthor discovered an asteroid that turned out to be a piece of Krypton. Seeing it was headed towards Earth, Luthor quickly pointed to Superman as the reason why the planet was always at the risk of destruction and declared Superman and Batman as enemies. He ordered many heroes to apprehend the two, but this didn't work. Luthor would proceed to go insane, more insane than usual, and he decided to try and fight Superman. Thanks to the sacrifice of Captain Atom, the asteroid was avoided and Earth was saved. Luthor revealed to Superman that Darkseid had been giving him technology, but he was secretly being recorded. This led to Luthor's impeachment and his disappearance, with Pete Ross becoming president. The pieces of the destroyed asteroid fell, bringing them thoughts of pieces of kryptonite. Worried for his friend, Batman got most of the heroes in the world to collect it and give it to Batman himself so he could hide it in the Batcave. Clark talked to Lana again about stopping her divorce, but she made up her mind. When Superman was finally captured Ruin, he unmasked the villain, and it turned out to be Pete Ross. Clark went to talk to his friend alone and learned that Pete knew he was Superman. Pete swore he was not the real Ruin and had been set up. Superman vowed to prove Pete's innocence, but Pete Ross disappeared. Another Kryptonian rocket fell to Earth similar to Clark's and was discovered by Batman. The pod's passenger was actually Superman's cousin. Despite Batman's suspicions, Clark was thrilled to meet Kara and was determined to take her in. Nonetheless, Wonder Woman took Kara to Themyscira to train her. Diana's fears proved to be justified when Darkseid's troops invaded Paradise Island and kidnapped Supergirl. Kara. Outraged, the Trinity traveled to Apokolips, where it turned out that Kara was actually an agent of Darkseid. But Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman managed to turn Kara over to the side of good. After a tough battle, Superman managed to defeat Darkseid, and Kara became Supergirl. Superman discovered Brainiac was mind-controlling Lois, or so he thought. After a battle with Brainiac in the Fortress of Solitude, Superman was surprised to find human blood on his hands. The Justice League and the Justice Society turned up, ordering Superman to surrender. Something was wrong because Superman tried to remember but couldn't remember. He thought he was fighting Darkseid. The Justice League concluded that Superman was being manipulated because the person he'd actually beaten to near death was actually Batman. The League determined Maxwell Lord was responsible. Just then, Lord controlled Superman to attack Wonder Woman, and Wonder Woman had to fight him. In a quick decision, Diana had to snap Maxwell's neck, an event recorded by Brother Eye. Superman was freed, but at a terrible price, as now Wonder Woman was a wanted criminal, and even Superman wasn't sure if he could trust her. Lois supported Wonder Woman, though. Superman discovered that the Justice League Watchtower had been destroyed, and the Justice League was broken up. The League was on edge with each other after the events with Lord, with Batman saying the last time Superman inspired anything was when he died. With hurt feelings all around, the heroes parted ways. As an ongoing crisis... What? Using all the clues he had discovered over time, Clark finally realized that Ruin was actually Email Hamilton. Having solved the mystery, Superman battled Ruin once again, seemingly for the final time, as Hamilton held Pete Ross and Lana Lang captive. Though Hamilton prepared to sacrifice himself with a bomb in his suit, Superman stopped him and arrested him. As the ongoing crisis continued, Superman heard a scream from Earth 2 and found the Golden Age Kal-El and the dead Earth Golden Age Lois Lane. Golden Age Kal-El blamed Bronze Age Kal-El for her death and attacked him, leading to a brutal fight. The fight was stopped by Golden Age Wonder Woman, who grabbed Golden Age Superman with her lasso. She and Bronze Age Kal-El helped him see the truth that it was really Lex Luthor. Lex Luthor, or Golden Age Lex Luthor, whose goal was to create the perfect universe, had his plans halted because of Superboy and Superboy Prime. Superboy ultimately died from the fight before Superman could arrive, and Clark felt a lot of grief. Golden Age Lex Luthor's universe meddling disrupted history, causing changes to Superman's past. Superboy Prime, driven totally insane, decided the only solution was to solve the universe was to destroy it by flying through Oa. In deep space, Guy Gardner and several other Green Lanterns managed to stop him long enough for both Golden and Bronze Age Supermans to grab him. The two Supermen flew him to Krypton's solar system and straight through the sun. Prime's powers were failing, but he still managed to fatally injure Golden Age Superman. Bronze Age Superman tore the S-shield off Superboy Prime's chest and knocked him out, but he collapsed. Superboy Prime was arrested by the Green Lantern Corps, and Golden Age Superman died in Golden Age Power Girl's arms, and Bronze Age Superman was taken back to Earth, having lost his powers. After living a normal life for a year as Clark Kent, after losing his powers, Superman's powers eventually came back. When he returned to action as the Man of Steel, the Sorcerer Arion came to Metropolis to implore Superman to stop fighting, saying that he was disrupting the course of human history by pushing back devastating events meant to be caused in the timeline. This caused Superman to wonder about his place in the world. After some time to think, Superman informed Arion of his choice to keep being Superman, but he was mind-controlled, planning to use him as a weapon against other alien heroes. But Superman managed to resist the spell and went after Arion, who began unleashing a massive disaster on the world. Phantom Stranger told Superman that Arion had unleashed the very disaster that Superman was trying to prevent. Superman found Arion's lair and fought him. A young boy, seemingly from Krypton, landed in Metropolis in a ship. Although initially the government worked with Superman on studying him, eventually they moved the boy and didn't tell Superman. Angered, Superman hijacked the truck transporting the child and took him back to home, deciding to raise him as his son, naming him Chris. It was discovered that Chris was actually the son of General Zod, and when Zod discovered his son was preferred being parented by Lois and Clark, Chris sacrificed himself to the Phantom Zone to stop Zod from escaping. One day, having discovered a Brainiac drone, Superman learned from the robot that he had never truly fought Brainiac, and they were all just probes. Superman flew all through the galaxy to find the real Brainiac, but he was captured by the real Brainiac and brought onto his ship. When he recovered, he was finally face to face with the true Brainiac, who had been studying, shrinking, bottling, and collecting civilizations for eons. Brainiac planned to destroy Earth, but his invasion was stopped by Superman and Supergirl. Superman restored Metropolis and the bottle city of Kandor to their regular size. However, Brainiac, though defeated, had one final trick left. After reading Superman's mind, he learned where Superman's parents lived and fired a missile that caused an explosion, though nobody was hurt by the missile, but Jonathan Kent did have a heart attack, and a funeral was held. Beginning another major crisis, Clayface, disguised as Jimmy Olsen, bombed the Daily Planet, killing many members, and leaving Lois in critical condition in a hospital. Clark whispered he would do anything to save his wife and was confronted by Monitor Zelo Vala, who insisted that Superman had to leave Earth. Zelo stopped time around Lois, allowing Superman to leave her side, but warned him that while they should have all the time they would need, after time returned to normal, her heart would only beat once without Superman. Zelo promised a drop of bleed, the extra-dimensional substance in which the multiverse used to grow, to heal Lois if their mission succeeded. Exiting reality, Superman was introduced to his allies. Fellow Superman, Captain Marvel of Earth 5, the Quantum Superman of Earth 4, Captain Alan Atom, the guilt-ridden Overman of the Nazi-dominated Earth 10, and his antimatter twin Ultraman.
Getting a brand new weapon and stealing a golden treasure. I don't sound as cool as Jack Black when I say that. Anyway, let's do this. Roll the intro.
The group of Supermen visited Limbo, where Mary Man took them to the Library of Limbo, its sole book containing infinite pages. Together, Superman and Captain Marvel were able to lift the infinite weight, allowing them to learn of the story of the Overmonitor, the all-encompassing mega-being in which the multiverse grew, into which it sent the Monitors. Its initial incursion into reality left a mark on creation in the form of a silent titanic sentinel in the shape of Superman himself. In a backstabbing move, Ultraman stole the infinite book and power for himself. As the drugs designed to dampen Captain
Adam's quantum senses wore off, he realized what had to be done and combined the essence of positive Superman and negative Ultraman. The energy generated enough to broadcast the resultant being to the higher dimension of Nil, home of the Monitors. In this heightened state, Superman discovered that the Monitors were a race of cosmic vampires feeding on the bleed to sustain themselves and fought to defeat the Dark Monitor. Upon the villain's defeat, Superman found out that he had been tricked and it was impossible to contain or bottle bleed to save his wife. Despite this, after splitting from Ultraman and returning to Earth, Superman managed to distill a single drop of the bleed and gave it to Lois, restoring her to full health. Afterwards, Superman was transported to the 31st century by the Legion of Superheroes, informed that Superboy Prime had returned and was destroying the future. After much deliberation, Superman and the Legion tried and failed to contain Superboy Prime before realizing that everything had been a plot orchestrated by the Time Trapper. The team then fought the Time Trapper, only to discover the Time Trapper was actually Superboy Prime. What a surprise. Upon seeing what he would become, Superboy Prime panicked and punched his future self, erasing them both and ending the conflict. When Superman returned to the present, he found the world had been attacked by Darkseid in his absence, and in a rage, he attacked Darkseid. There he found Batman's corpse. Darkseid mocked Superman, saying he planned to take over all of existence, causing Superman to snap and almost kill him. Though he relented, Superman watched as Barry Allen, having been brought back from the dead, and Wally West led the Black Racer to Darkseid to defeat him. As reality crumbled around him and the universe slowly died from the crisis, Superman, with the help of the rest of the remaining superheroes and humanity, constructed the Miracle Machine to undo all the damage. Darkseid's essence, unbound from his body, attempted to claim the Miracle Machine in a last-ditch effort, but Superman sang a note at a frequency that countered Darkseid's own vibrational frequency and shattered his essence. At this point, Mandrake, now in the form of Monitor Roxo Gamma, arrived alongside a now vampiric Ultraman to consume Superman, the last and great protector of life, at his weakest, explaining that Darkseid's fall, return, and ultimate demise has worn the fabric of creation enough for him to invade it. To fight back, Superman used the remaining solar energy in his body to power the Miracle Machine, making a single wish. The Superman of the multiverse appeared and fought back against Mandrake and Ultraman, weakening Mandrake enough for the Green Lantern Corps to break through and kill Mandrake. With the crisis over and the multiverse rebuilding, Nix Olin revealed that Superman's wish was for a happy ending. Following Superman's encounter with Brainiac, the entire city of Kandor now resided, back to its original size, near the North Pole. Although distracted by the recent death of his adopted father, Superman attempted to aid the other Kryptonians with their assimilation on Earth, something very few of them seemed interested in, including the city's leaders, Supergirl's parents. After the first televised meeting between the president and a delegation from Kandor was interrupted by Doomsday, Supergirl's parents formed a task force determined to end any future threat by capturing Superman's worst villains and sending them to the Phantom Zone. However, despite good intentions, the plan went south and several human police officers were killed by the Kryptonians when they refused to hand over Parasite. In a plot orchestrated by Lex Luthor, Lois Lane's father, Metallo, and Reactron, all four of them, to stop the Kryptonian invasion, Supergirl's father was assassinated. Superman was caught in the middle of war, humanity demanding justice for the police officers, Kryptonians demanding justice for Supergirl's father, until the conflict ended with Kryptonian scientists using Brainiac's technology to lift Kandor off the Earth, and grow an entirely new planet called New Krypton on the other side of the solar system, directly opposite the Earth and therefore hidden by the sun. For not directly siding with Krypton, Allura told Superman that he was not welcome on New Krypton, although Supergirl went there and left Earth for permanently. In the end, Allura freed General Zod to help lead their people. Soon after, Superman accepted his aunt Aura Inze's offer to begin a new life on their planet in exchange for renouncing his life on Earth. Because of Superman's superior mastery over his abilities, he was drafted into the Kryptonian Military Guild as a commander, working directly beneath Zod. Cal was placed in charge of the Red Shard Tactical Response Unit. An assassination attempt on General Zod's life forced Superman's investigation into the crime back on Earth, where Lois informed Clark that Zod's son and their adopted son Chris Kent had returned to Earth. Though Superman had found the assassin, the criminal was killed by Lois Lane's father. Kal-El was temporarily promoted to general with Zod out of commission, and the council discussed going to war based on revelations that the assassin Raldar's weapon used against Zod was Earth-made. Zod returned to his position as a major conspiracy against New Krypton was being unraveled. Superman discovered the plot was orchestrated by General Lane as Superwoman, who believed that weakening New Krypton internally would preserve more lives because they believed an interplanetary war was inevitable. Clark temporarily left New Krypton to spend Thanksgiving with Martha, Connor, and Krypto in Smallville. The dinner was interrupted by the zombified corpse of the Golden Age Superman, who had been turned into a Black Lantern during the events of Blackest Night, bringing all the Earth's deceased beings back to life as evil Black Lanterns.
The revived Black Lantern bodies of the Golden Age Superman, Golden Age Lois Lane, and Psycho Pirate attacked the family, but Superman, Superboy, and Krypton fought them off. Nekron, the leader of the Black Lantern Corps, arrived on Earth and revealed he was behind the crisis and was responsible for his return to life after the death of Superman at Doomsday. But because of this, Nekron was able to turn Superman into a Black Lantern with ease. Hal Jordan found the white entity of life and merged with it, gaining the power to defeat Nekron. Hal resurrected Superman and inducted him into the new White Lantern Corps. With their combined power, the White Lanterns resurrected the Black Hand, Nekron's link to the world of the living. Having lost his herald, Nekron was banished from the world of the living and Blackest Night ended. The white entity disappeared and Superman was returned to normal. Brainiac returned and began invading New Krypton, forcing civilians to fight for their home. Zod activated the global defense cannons to fire on Brainiac's ship. Unfortunately, the blast did not even scratch the ship, but several Kryptonians were killed. Outraged, Superman called Zod out on his lack of preparation, and he quit the Guild and became Superman. Superman deduced how the shield around Brainiac's ship worked and was able to bypass it, infiltrating the ship. Once inside, Superman was knocked out by a kryptonite laser fired by none other than Lex Luthor, who was now working with Brainiac. Upon awakening, the Man of Steel found himself trapped to a torture machine, but he was rescued. Superman reconnected with the Legion of Superheroes, who had come back in time to New Krypton's aid. Despite their efforts, Brainiac managed to shrink and remodel the city of Kandor. Upon returning to Brainiac's ship, Supergirl and Brainiac 5 succeeded in restoring Kandor, while Superman and Zod fought Brainiac. In all the commotion, one of Brainiac's cities was enlarged while still inside the ship, causing the ship to go on a collision course towards New Krypton. Superman asked Mon-El and the Legionnaires to save the bottled cities, while he, Superboy, and Supergirl tried to stop the ship. The heroes were all successful, but Superman was left mortally wounded. With a blood transfusion from Superboy and a dose of synthesized concentrated sunlight, Brainiac 5 saved Superman. With the battle won, Zod attempted to kill Brainiac, but Superman intervened, arguing that Brainiac should stand trial. Despite this, Brainiac 5 grabbed Brainiac and teleported away. Shortly afterwards, Superman and Supergirl discovered that Lex Luthor was never even present at Kandor. Instead, it was one of his robots. Shortly after Brainiac's invasion had been stopped, Superman received news that General Zod had declared war on Earth. Outraged, Superman attempted to stop him, but was held down by Ursa and Non. Zod revealed that, from the very beginning, he planned to invade Earth, and allowed Superman to join the Guild so that he would unknowingly train the soldiers. Superman argued that a war would mean the end of both Earth and New Krypton, but Zod didn't care. Superman and Zod brought their fight to space, avoiding New Krypton's quick destruction, though Supergirl survived. Her mother was not so lucky, leading Supergirl to angrily join the remaining forces to fight against Superman. Though Superman and his cousin fought, Clark convinced Supergirl to calm down and understand the consequences of her actions while human lives were at stake as Zod's Kryptonian military invaded Earth and Mars. In a planetary defense move, Luthor and General Lane reverse-engineered Kryptonian technology and used it to turn the sun red. With their powers gone, Superman, Supergirl, and the thousands of Kryptonians almost suffocated in space. Superman and Zod managed to fall back and crash in Metropolis, with Zod planning to terraform the Earth into a new Krypton. Just as Zod was about to kill Superman with a kryptonite knife, Superboy, Krypto, and Lord Zod jumped in to save him. Superman prepared to sacrifice himself and drag General Zod into the Phantasm to end the war, but Lord Zod volunteered, saying goodbye to his father Clark and ending the Reign of Terror. In the aftermath, Superman and Lois reflected on the harsh pointlessness of the war that killed so many people. In response, Lois promised to write the truth about her father, despite the media portraying him as a hero. The couple wished that maybe someday that they could change things. Following the 100-minute war, Superman felt he lost touch with humanity. In an effort to get back to his roots as a hero, Superman decided he would walk across the country on foot starting in Philadelphia. Passing through Detroit, he used alien technology to solve the employment crisis and reopen factories. The new Batman tracked him down and asked him to stop, believing that Clark was in the middle of an emotional breakdown, but Superman insisted he needed to do this. Superman was met with further criticism in Ohio when a supervillain fight destroyed an entire small town. When passing through Chicago, Clark was asked to leave because his mission seemed like a threat to the children. Despite this, Superman rescued a young boy from an abusive father. His morals were challenged again in Iowa when Lois Lane tried to shut down an environmentally unsafe factory. Forced to choose a side, Superman asked his wife not to publish his article because it would cost too many people their jobs. On his travels, Superman met the new Wonder Woman, following changes to her history, and inspired her to become a hero. Clark and the Flash had lunch in Colorado and discussed the idea of being a superhero, leaving Clark with a brighter outlook on the future. The original Batman, back from the dead, helped him further come to terms with his grief in Utah. Following an attack by a live wire in Las Vegas, Superman tried his best to lighten the supervillain's prison sentence,
explaining to Jimmy Olsen that America was the land of second chances. Clark came to the conclusion that Superman was unnecessary and believed he would be better if he started acting in secret. In the middle of Clark writing an article condemning himself, an Oregon man obsessed with Superman took him on a tour of the city to show him his value as a symbol by asking people on the streets. The villain that had secretly been plaguing Superman was revealed to be Lisa Jennings, a woman who became the physical embodiment of Superman's depression and self-doubt through exposure to a Kryptonian sunstone and had also been given his powers. Superman disarmed her using his hope, having beaten his depression, and decided to embrace his legacy. Giving signal watches to his closest allies, he formed the Supermen of America with Iron Munro, Livewire, Steel, Superboy, Superchief, and Supergirl. And this would turn into the Superman Squad. When Superman was warned that Doomsday was in Metropolis, the Man of Steel sped to the scene only to be dragged into outer space by Lex Luthor, who had acquired godlike superpowers and planned to destroy Superman once and for all. Using his new superpowers to torture Superman within his own mind, Luthor rediscovered Superman was Clark Kent and that he grew up with a happy childhood. Furious, Luthor, with jealousy, attempted to finally kill Superman, but found out that he wouldn't be able to do that. And Lex Luthor fell into the Phantom Zone and lost all his memory. Superman reconnected with his friends on Luthor's ship after Lex's defeat and learned that, before he disappeared, Luthor created many Doomsdays. Upon this discovery, the Superman family found the Doomslayer, a sentient Doomsday, who murdered the Eradicator. The Doomslayer explained his mission was to kill every Doomsday and all knowledge of them, and he killed the original Doomsday. He attempted to kill the original Doomsday. However, Superman defended the original Doomsday. But the fact that this version, the Doomslayer, achieved sentience proved that even Doomsday could redeem himself. The Doomslayer ignored that though, and he killed all the Doomsdays.
There we go. That is 10 just in time for sundown. Where do we put this thing? Because stuff could crawl through. I'm feeling a bit chaotic, so I'm going to put it opposite my tent. Why not? Actually, we can put it over there in the...
Superman, Steel, Supergirl, and Superboy successfully stopped the ship from crash landing into Metropolis by aiming it into the bay and even reduced the damage of the tidal wave it caused. The Doomslayer, undefeated though, allied himself with 4 Doomsday clones and released them on the world to wreak havoc. Superman learned that the Eradicator had not actually been destroyed, and using the technology in Luthor's ship, had managed to overtake the original Doomsday's body and wanted to help stop the ensuing havoc. Superman, Steel, Superboy, Supergirl, and the Eradicator successfully defeated and captured the rampaging Doomsdays that were set on the world, and the Eradicator sacrificed itself to teleport the Doomslayer far away from Earth. At some point, an alternate reality's future version of Brainiac abducted Superman and Lois and thousands of others from the world and across the multiverse and put them on the Blood Moon to fight each other. The planet was controlled by the being Telos, with all its inhabitants residing in a version of Gotham City surrounded by a dome. 3 months after the Dome imprisonment, Clark impregnated Lois, and during the next 9 months, Clark fought crime in Gotham as a mass vigilante with Lois's help until the Dome disappeared and Clark got his powers back. With his powers back, Superman was attacked by Captain Thunder, Cyborg, and Abin Sur from an alternate timeline. With Jimmy Olsen's help, Superman fought off the attackers until he discovered that Lois had been kidnapped by his alternate self. Superman defeated his alternate self and rescued Lois just in time for her to have their son, who they named Jonathan Samuel Kent. When the villain Deimos seized control of the Blood Moon, all of the collected heroes, including their original captor Talos, worked together to destroy Deimos, and his energy was scattered into the universe and began to tear reality apart. The only way to save the multiverse, according to Brainiac, was to go back in time and stop the first crisis that destroyed all the way back in the Golden Age. The group of heroes managed to stop the crisis, after which Superman, Lois, and their son Jonathan found themselves on Earth Zero, 9 years in the past. With their chance at a simpler life, Lois and Clark retired being heroes, and that's the end of that. Despite living incognito, Superman never stopped working to protect the world, doing so in secret. He witnessed the New World's Justice League form after their first fight with Darkseid, and to further his activities, he constructed his own Fortress of Solitude, and eventually, even as a grown man, was forced out of secrecy to fight Blank. Later, Superman saved the Excalibur, a space shuttle that carried Hank Henshaw, the man who would eventually become Cyborg Superman on the original world, and they became friends. After his family was kidnapped by Intergang, Clark told his son about the truth of their origin and taught the boy how to use his powers. After years in hiding, Clark met his younger Earth Zero counterpart, the current Superman of this world, who was dying from radiation poisoning. Their encounter was short as they were attacked by Denny Swan, an ex-con who acquired solar powers. Though the two Clarks worked together, the younger Clark died, and the older Clark had to become the new Superman. Superman will make his first public appearance by confronting Lex Luthor, who assumed that the Superman identity himself, who had become Superman to honor the hero. Though the two fought, they were interrupted by Doomsday, forcing Superman and Luthor to work together, learning to both be Superman in this new universe. During this time, Superman encountered a version of Clark Kent who had never been Superman and wasn't even Kryptonian. As the human Clark proved harmless, Superman just let him do his thing. However, the human Clark eventually burned down a farm and kidnapped Superman's son, and turned out to be the fifth dimensional imp.
Next to a pretty brown biome, see if we can make our way towards it. I was going to fall and die.
Eventually, the fifth dimensional imp also revealed that both the new Earth and Prime Superman were the same person, just separated because they were split into two when the Flash altered the timeline. The essences of both Superman combined to save John and became a single Superman, fixing their conflicting histories and bringing the world back to normal. However, a cataclysmal event known as Flashpoint would cause the Earth to reset once again and begin the new 52.
Yeah, that's much. Can't create one of these. You just have to find it. Okay, that's fine. But there's lots of different weapons.
Now for the new 52.
A twin blade. That sounds sick. 26.5, but that's only.
Kal-El was born on Krypton to Jor-El and Lara. But Jor-El found out that the planet was doomed to destruction, and he tried to go into the Phantom Zone but was repelled by the criminals like General Zod, who were already there. With no other choice, they realized they would die, and activated the ship to send Clark to Earth. Honestly, the rest of his history is kind of the same, the only difference being that Jonathan and Martha Kent were unable to have their own children, so they took Clarfin as their chance. They also left a dead cow in his ship, which is funny. At one in the New 52 universe, though, on his prom night, there were no superheroes in the world of the DC universe yet, so there was nobody to make Clark want to be a hero, and he was unable to save his parents from a accident and ended up selling their farm to become a journalist. When he joined the Daily Star, he began becoming a vigilante at the age of 22, printed the Superman shirt on a t-shirt, revealed himself before he expected to, but he didn't have a name. But eventually he revealed himself and was taking down different corrupt businessmen and such, and he also saved a train that had Lois in it. At one point, though, the government military kidnaps him, with Lex Luthor torturing Superman and studying his rocket. Upon his escape, though, Superman sealed his birth rocket away, but was too late from its Kryptonian signal, alerting Brainiac. After the district of New Troy was shrunken down by Brainiac, Superman went into outer space to fight Brainiac. And eventually Superman, he revealed himself to the world. Although this is very strange.
Superman wins. Ice glaciers. I feel like these are mycotoxic undergrowth.
Most of Clark Kent's childhood is pretty much the same. There are some extra little flashbacks here. At one point, Martha had cancer, and Clark saved a bully from an abusive father. There was a bad harvest for their farm. At one point, he joined the Legion of Superheroes. And yeah, they would still die in the car accident. However, it was actually arranged by a fifth dimensional being. However, there's a lot of strange history things with the New 52. For example, the Justice Society of America did at one point exist, and Clark does save his parents, and all the same things happen, and it's just very strange. At one point, Clark investigates a series of murders in Wayne Enterprises with Batman, or meets Batman there, I should say. And then they got pulled into a parallel reality, and they met the Bronze Age versions of each other, and then got their memories wiped. During the 0 year, Clark attempted to take out a villain, but he kind of failed horribly, actually. Within 6 months, eventually he, like I said, revealed himself as Superman, and all sorts of stuff like that. At one point, he went to the Daily Planet and met Lois Lane. He saved her life during a helicopter crash, and he faced the Ultra Humanite. He also became enemies with Lex Luthor. Before the founding of the Justice League in the New 52 timeline, Clark was sent to the 1960s, operating in secret, though the president knew who he was, so that's not really that secret. He spoke to JFK. At one point, Clark was one of the founding members of the Justice League, and they fought Star of the Conqueror. At one point, he fought Mongol and Black Mercy, and would become best friends with Batman, as well as taking on villains like Poison Ivy, Metallo, and Negative Man, and lots of different things. But there's just a lot of the same stuff. At one point, Superman and Batman were sent to the year 1892 to rescue Robin, and they did that. There's a lot of different things. At one point, this version of Superman would get married, and they would end with Lois Lane, and they had a child named John. And at one point, Superman met King Arthur, which is interesting. And Lex Luthor was finally taken to jail for good.
Nothing more than a nuisance.
And just the entirety of the New 52 continuity is really messy because Rebirth was not a full reboot. The 2016 Rebirth event, which relaunched everything, wasn't a full reboot, but it altered a lot of the history, but kept a lot of the events, and it's very strange. So it's kind of really hard to follow the New 52 and the current Superman continuity. And it's honestly really frustrating. I have to be totally honest. At one point, like, the final thing to happen before Superman Rebirth is he would give his powers. It's a mess, man. It's a mess. Like, I'm trying to understand and read this. I have a whole script here, but this was legitimately the actual hardest part of the research for this. I had an easier time researching things from the Silver Age and the old Comics Code Authority comics and what was canon and what wasn't than doing the New 52, and that's just like really, really sad. There's a whole bunch of different things though. Yeah, this is the problem. Like, halfway through this, they redo the history, so and everything is changed, and there's like 3 versions of everything, and just in the New 52 alone, and it's just a mess.
On my Earth, we're friends.
I'm gonna be honest.
Here, we're not.
It's just a mess, and I don't like it. So we're going to skip over what the parts that are already similar to previous versions, or the parts that were changed. And we're going to begin at the end of Flashpoint, because that is the seemingly that's kind of where we leave off when New 52 begins. So after Barry Allen returns from Flashpoint, Clark Kent adopts a costume, a suit comprised of Kryptonian nanotech. Whenever he needed it, that would go over his suit whenever he needed it. After faking his death as Clark Kent to shake off someone who was investigating too closely into him, Clark took the alias of Johnny Clark and joined the fire department. But he began to regret killing the Clark Kent identity off and sought advice from Batman. After discovering an alien named Captain Comet who foretold of Earth's extinction by alien attacks, Superman managed to fight him off, but in the process, caused his Johnny Clark identity to be killed as well. Luckily, Superman's former landlady knew who he was and revealed him that she was also from the fifth dimension and used one of her 3 wishes to wipe Clark's Kent deaths from everyone's mind and allowed Superman to be fine. She explained that everyone from the fifth dimension was fucking with Superman because it was funny. And yeah, he's kind of cooked, honestly. So she tried to kill Superman, and then that didn't really work. And then she tried to do it again, and it didn't really work. And she kept trying to do it. Eventually, the same kind of things that happened in the other universes with Morgan Edge buying the Daily Planet happened, and Clark quit. Later, Superman was met by another Kryptonian survivor who wanted him to try and help recreate Krypton, but he didn't like that idea because it involves quite literally destroying Earth. While invading the shady government group known as Ascension, Superman uncovered the beast known as Wraith, an alien with very similar powers to him that was captured and trained by the US government to bring down terrorists. After learning about their common goals, Superman and Wraith worked together to stop Ascension. Superman and Wraith defeated a small faction of Ascension, but Superman was soon betrayed by Wraith, who sought what was known as the Earthstone. Following a colossal battle, Superman defeated Wraith, and not long after this, Lex Luthor informed him that Wraith's species was planning to attack Earth, and the only weapon that could be used against them would kill Superman. Superman, totally. Superman he didn't use the weapon and killed himself by accident, but it was Wraith that killed himself, not Superman. Superman was dragged into space by a mysterious force called the Oracle that told him that the previous Kryptonian friend of his had survived and managed to bring Krypton back to life by changing the timeline again, which threatened the entire universe.
Finished.
With
I don't dare death.
So, with the help of Feora, Superman traveled to Kryptonopolis a few months before the explosion of Krypton, and he met his own mother and witnessed her tell his father she was pregnant with him. But he then met his own father and was like, yo, what the fuck? So Superman and his father went to Krypton to fight the other Kryptonian, and then Superman fought the guy, and then they fucking just killed him. They just fucking killed him, bro. And then Superman and Supergirl met, and they're like, oh shit, Superboy dead, and then they were sad, and that's like, yeah, really sad. In the hopes of ridding the world of evil, Pandora tried to have members of the Justice League open her box. Don't take that out of context. Believing that their virtuousness would prevent the calamity that occurred when she opened it. However, this did not work, and they began fighting because the entire Justice League basically had a Captain America Civil War moment. While trying to understand the escalating tension of opening the box, Superman and Wonder Woman were ambushed by Dr. Light, and Superman accidentally killed Dr. Light. He asked to be locked away, but started getting sick. Upon investigating further, Firestorm the Adamant Element Woman discovered that there was kryptonite in his nervous system, which caused him to not be able to think straight. However, before they could save him, the crime syndicate came to Earth from their Earth and in the multiverse and trapped the League inside the Firestorm Matrix. After being freed by Lex Luthor and his group of rebellious criminals, Superman was eventually saved, who actually removed the kryptonite and saved him. Lex Luthor now joined the Justice League as a superhero. After discovering Doomsday wreaking havoc and harboring a dangerous toxin, Superman ripped the beast in half and literally killed him. After recovering, Superman realized he was slowly turning into a monster. Wonder Woman tried to help him, but the transformation got worse, and Superman locked himself in a jail. But the Teen Titans needed his help, and he helped. The military declared Superman an enemy of the state, and they sent Metallo and Atomic Skull to eliminate him. Steel tried to help Superman, but after a suicide attack, Superman became weak, and he turned into Doomsday. Wonder Woman then turned Clark to outer space, where he could escape and not hurt anybody while they tried to find a cure. While in space, Super Doom tried to help an alien colony, but killed them. He was then warned about an incoming invasion from Brainiac, and Cyborg Superman was coming. After a brief fight, Super Doom returned to Earth and rejoined the Justice League, and also almost killed everyone again, but he returned back to normal. When Brainiac's forces returned with reinforcements, Superman attempted to turn back into Super Doom, but he lost control and became completely Doomsday, and also killed a bunch of people. Lois Lane helped Superman steal Brainiac's powers and cured Superman. Once free, the hero captured Brainiac and killed him. Just whipped him into a black hole. He came back to Earth 2 months later. During an alien attack on Metropolis, Superman was assisted by a stranger called Ulysses, and together they defeated Cleric, one of the alien soldiers. Superman then learned that Ulysses believed himself to be the last survivor of Earth. With Superman's help, Ulysses found the truth about his past, but they were attacked by the Machinist, a man responsible for creating robots. The criminal managed to escape, and shortly afterwards, Ulysses revealed his plan of taking millions of people to his home planet, known as the Great World. This led to a confrontation, and Ulysses actually defeated Superman and took him prisoner. On the way to Ulysses' home planet, there was another confrontation between Superman and Ulysses, and Superman actually didn't realize he had solar powers, but he fucking he just kills him, man. He just keeps killing people in the New 52. At the Daily Planet, Clark started to get text messages. We have text messages now from an unnamed source that gave him tips on criminals that he was able to stop. Unfortunately, he got more messages who turned out they were blackmailing him. Condessa told Clark about the organization that had been stalking her called Hoarder, whose leader Hoarder Root was behind Superman's blackmailing. Superman went after the group and revealed his identity to Lois, and then he got his powers taken away. Eventually he recovered, he found their leader, and then got blackmailed again. He went to a secret facility, he fucking destroyed a bunch of shit. Lois didn't want her to suffer, wanting Superman to suffer, just gave everyone his identity and gave everything. And even though the villains couldn't really fight Superman didn't have anything against him, he was still turned into public enemy number one. Because of his identity, Clark was fired by Perry White, who felt Clark shouldn't have kept that from him, and because he no longer had powers, he wasn't even able to go to the Fortress of Solitude, and his Kryptonian costume didn't recognize him. He was forced to become a whole different person and pretend to be a different hero. The mastermind behind Superman's power loss was actually Vandal Savage, who hijacked the Stormwatch space carrier and captured the Justice League. To stop Savage, Steel provided Superman with a kryptonite-powered suit of armor, much like his own. Superman and the Justice League stormed the Watchtower, but Vandal tore the Fortress of Solitude off the ground and just fucking destroyed it. Vandal used the Comet's power to give superpowers to the thousands of children he had, and just fucking destroyed it. He just took them over and just started destroying shit. Superman led Earth's remaining superheroes into attacking the Stormwatch carrier and freed the Justice League. Superman attempted to stop Savage, but the villain just absolutely beat the shit out of him. And then put him through the Fortress of Solitude, but luckily, because his powers were coming back, the Fortress recognized him and healed him and gave him his uniform. Fully powered again, Superman attempted to stop the fight, as Vandal manipulated his children into exposing themselves to the Comet's dangerous power. Unfortunately, Superman's pleas fell on deaf ears, and everyone just fucking died. Everyone just died. Vandal offered for Superman to join his side and rule Earth. Yup, Earth. We're gonna go with that. But Superman refused and broke the comet off Earth's orbit, throwing into Vandal into deep space. When the daughter of Darkseid, named Grail, signaled an impending war between her father and the Anti-Monitor, Superman and Lex Luthor, who was still a hero, tried to stop the disaster. However, they were betrayed by Lex's sister, who used a mother box to take them to Apokolips. Once there, they worked together to survive, and Superman had no powers again. As they were surrounded by parademons, Lex, in a desperate attempt to save Superman, threw him into a fire pit thinking it would fix, but actually it just turned him evil and shit. So he just absolutely just annihilated everybody, and Lex Luthor was cooked. So Superman came back to the Justice League, but Wonder Woman was totally about to murk them all, but Wonder Woman used her lasso of truth and brought Superman to his senses. As the war began between Darkseid and the Anti-Monitor and started wreaking havoc on Earth, Superman joined the fight, and he actually almost managed to defeat the Anti-Monitor. And turned himself back to normal as well in the process. The war was halted, though, when Mobius was unexpectedly killed by Steve Trevor, who had been infected with the anti-life equation. In the final fight, Lex and Steve Trevor were stripped of their powers to resurrect the fallen Darkseid as a baby. With all the enemy combatants dead or scattered, the war was over. Unfortunately, despite expelling the apocalyptian dark energy during the fight, the damage done to Superman's cellular structure was irreversible. Superman was going to die. Again. Now, this is something that I've already kind of mentioned, but as a result of everything happening with Flashpoint and everything, there was actually 2 Supermen on this. There was the Superman we're talking about right now, and there's the Superman from the Bronze Age, as well as Lois Lane, the ones who had the children and had retired from being superheroes. So after being depowered by Vandal Savage, the events of the Dark Side Ward, and his fight with the Kryptonian god, the younger Superman realized he was about to die and tried to find a successor. He told the truth to Lois Lane, published everything, and revealed his identity. He told the truth to Wonder Woman. They shared a moment. They went to Metropolis, and they found out that an energy Superman was destroying everything. Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman tried to stop the energy Superman, and while doing so, they were assisted by Superman in Black, who was unidentified. Superman took energy Superman to space, where he used the solar flare power to just fucking mutilate him and kill him. And then Superman fucking just died. He just died. And the Black Superman became the new Superman, which was actually the Superman from the Bronze Age. And this is where we're going to begin the Rebirth comics, which are actually the newest DC reboot.
Kryptonians call that a beatdown.
As I said, there were 2 Supermen. The younger one died, the new one took over, yada yada. As Clark and Lois got ready to move back to Metropolis from their we're in Rebirth now. From their rural home in the country, the new Hank Henshaw put together a new Superman revenge squad. Stealing a mystical item from Superman's Himalayan backup fortress, Henshaw turned himself back into Cyborg Superman and allied himself with Superman's greatest foes to finally destroy him. Superman was forced to retreat, taking his family to the Fortress of Solitude. The group of villains assaulted the fortress before he had time to come up with a plan, but the Superman family, Supergirl, Superman, Superwoman, Super Steel, Steel, Superman, and Lex Luthor, who's also Superman, arrived, because Lex Luthor's not bad in this world. During the ensuing brawl, Zod managed to send most of Superman's allies to the Phantom Zone and freed his wife Ursa and their son Lord Zod. Superman and his family successfully defeated the rest of the squad and freed Superman's friends. As punishment, Superman left the defeated Cyborg Superman in the Phantom Zone. After addressing several emergencies all over the world, Superman found the perpetrator of these disasters to be the mysterious force that had been watching him for years, Mr. Oz, who teleported Superman to the Fortress of Solitude and revealed himself to be Jor-El. Jor-El told his son about he survived. A mysterious enemy entity rescued him from Krypton moments before it exploded and brought him to Earth. Horrified by Earth's darkest impulses, Jor-El became Mr. Oz and vowed to correct the decision he made and move Superman to a new planet. Superman refused to abandon Earth, though. Mr. Oz set his sights on Superman's family and made contact with Lois and John, hoping that by convincing them to rebuke him, Superman, furious at his father's nagging, fought him and absolutely beat the shit out of him. Back to his senses, Jor-El begged his son to do the right thing and then was teleported away. Saddened by these recent events, Superman investigated if Mr. Oz really was his father, using the Flash's cosmic treadmill to go back to Krypton in the past. He reached Krypton, where he stumbled upon Booster Gold and Skeets, who informed him that he just fucked up the timeline. Booster attempted to forcibly return Superman to the timeline, his original timeline, but one of Krypton's eradicators damaged the time sphere, and they became trapped in a 25th century Gotham City, where Booster Gold was born. Gaining access to a time sphere, Booster theorized that they could now visit Krypton without destroying the timeline. However, the Eradicator then, coincidentally, also fucked up the timeline, and they crash-landed and were captured by General Zod. The heroes were sentenced to be executed, but before Zod and his family could execute them, Superman, Booster, and Skeets caused an uprising of slaves, and they escaped. Skeets reconstructed the time sphere, giving them a chance to return to the present. Before they did, though, Superman convinced Booster to let him see their final moments, and they watched as a blue light took Jor-El away, confirming that he was Mr. Oz. The heroes returned to the present, where in Superman's absence his family would have died, but Booster Gold actually saved the day by rewinding time. Through unknown circumstances, the Justice League was captured by Mongol, who'd forcibly leaked into gladiatorial this is all the same stuff on Warworld and such, but eventually, after they got off of Warworld and returned to Dort, they found out that a mountain had grown into the middle of Gotham. Their investigations on the mountain led them to Kendra Saunders, who had also been investigating the mountain, believing it to be related to a mysterious place known as the Dark Multiverse.
Weird as hell commercial.
An evil from the Dark Universe had been foresaw to take Batman. As the League searched for Batman all over the world since he had disappeared, Superman refused to believe that his friend would actually be the catalyst for the Dark Multiverse's victory, and instead believed Batman could be reasoned with. Superman and the League battled through several distractions left in place until he and Wonder Woman cornered Batman, the place prophesized to do all this shit. Unfortunately, the Court of Owls manipulated Batman into opening the gate, allowing Barbados, the king of the Dark Multiverse, and his 7 Dark Knights to entry into the universe, including the fucking Batman who laughs. Fucking hate the Batman who laughs. Anyway, for an entire week, Barbados held the captured heroes in dark towers, hanging above the ruins of Metropolis, while subjecting Superman and Wonder Woman into terrible nightmares that convinced the heroes they had stopped Barbados, only to turn out that actually Barbados let them win. Against Wonder Woman's warning, Superman attempted to defeat Barbados, but was absolutely molested by the Devastator. Superman was only saved by the timely interference of the Flash, and was taken to the Oblivion Bar, one of the only safe places on Earth. As the heroes discussed their plans to stop the invasion, Clark revealed that Bruce had sent him a warning through Barbados' nightmares, and he believed he could defeat him by going into the Dark Multiverse. With help from Flash and Steel, Superman traveled to the Fortress of Solitude and modified the Phantom Zone projector to go to the Dark Multiverse. Although Superman managed to reach Batman, he was captured by the evil Superman. Using the last of his strength, Batman saved Clark from Dark Superman and asked Dream of the Endless for help in stopping Barbados. The Prince of Stories told the world's finest about the origins of Barbados and the Dark Multiverse and revealed that there was a way to defeat the sources of darkness. The heroes needed to travel to the world of Forge at the heart of creation and use the metal from the Forge to create weapons that could defeat Barbados. Upon reaching the Forge, however, the heroes found that the Forge was dark and had been ambushed by Carter Hall. As Batman attempted to reason with Carter, Superman listened to Barbados wail into the skies, intending to accelerate the universe's fall into the Dark Multiverse. The heroes distracted Carter long enough to find a spark of hope within the Forge of Worlds, just in time for the dark metals of the Dark Multiverse to start flooding the Forge. Fortunately, Wonder Woman reached the lowest depths of the Forge and found Batman and Superman with the last remnants of 10th metal, which they used to forge armors for the Justice League. As the League fought Barbados and his Dark Knights, Superman personally defeated the Devastator while using the mental powers of the 10th metal to bind Barbados in cosmic chains and return the multiverse to normal. The outcome of the battle, however, shattered their source wall, leaving positive multiverse exposed to the mysteries and dangers. Peace would be short-lived, however, as Brainiac attacked Earth, captured as many people as he could, including Superman, and forcibly brought them to his homeworld, which was under attack by Omega Titans. He explained to his prisoners that he needs their help to stop the Omega Titans, who were awakened by the breaking of the Source Wall. To stop them, the superhumans of Earth, we need to find 4 energies connected to each of the Titans, mystery, wonder, entropy, and wisdom, and achieve a balance between them, which could give the Titans no reason to want to consume Brainiac's original homeworld. Superman was forced to help Brainiac and was placed with a team of superhumans that embodied mystery the same way he did. As Brainiac attempted to explain his plan, however, he fucking died. He just had a seizure and fucking died. Like, just absolutely fucking he's gone. As the Justice League made planetfall, they found 4 mysterious trees made of pure information. What? Comics, man. That allowed the Titans to discover which of the 4 energies was dominant. Team Mystery made its way to the Tree of Mystery, a place that had held countless miniaturized cities like Kandor previously. Martian Manhunter and Starro succeeded in awakening the prisoners from their cities, and the other Justice Leaguers attempted to balance the energies of the trees. Unfortunately, the Omega Titans devastated Kalu, and Starro sacrificed his life and bought the League's time to escape. The Justice League returned to Earth, only to find the Omega Titans already carving up a path of destruction throughout the planet, thanks to a cosmic seed Brainiac had planted on Earth to lure the Titans away from it. To save the Earth, the League charged the seed with the 4 energies of Earth and fired it, infusing it with the 4 energies. The other Titans, attracted to the seed, cannibalized their own brother and departed from Earth, and although Earth is saved, they knew the Justice League the Justice League knew they needed to prepare against something else, as the universe was changing. Shortly after the city of Metropolis paid him a tribute for years of heroism, the Kent family received a visit from Jor-El, who asked the Kents to let him take their son John on a journey across the galaxy. Clark said fuck off, but John was like, yeah, I kind of want to go. So Lois was like, yeah, I guess let him go. So then, like, she was like, I'll go with him. And then Clark was like, all right, fuck, fine. Fucking stop nagging me, bitch. And then afterwards, a mysterious villain broke into the fortress while Superman wasn't there, leveled the place, and, most heinously, just absolutely just wrecked the city of Kandor. Like, that guy just, like, booted the bottle and broke it. Superman and Supergirl tracked the murderer down and discovered his identity to be an alien named Rogol-Zar, who claimed to have been the one to destroy Krypton and wanted to finish his mission of just murking all the Kryptonians. Superman engaged Rogol all the way to the moon, but was defeated. Rescued by his cousin and healed by the Justice League, Superman figured out if Rogol intended to cleanse the Kryptonian plague, his next move would be to fucking just bomb the Earth. Like a Muslim. Superman and Supergirl worked together to defeat Rogol and trapped him inside the Phantom Zone. Unfortunately, with the Fortress of Solitude absolutely fucking crumbled to ash, Superman could not communicate with his family to check if they were safe. Supergirl also decided to leave Earth in order to find out more about Rogol-Zar's origins, and the Justice League had a memorial for all the fucking dead Kandorians. After constructing a new Fortress of Solitude in the Bermuda Triangle, Superman had a conversation with Martian Manhunter, who told Superman to consider the possibility of becoming a leader to a global community so he could lead Earth and humanity to a better tomorrow. However, before he could think on the idea, Clark realized the Earth had somehow been teleported into the Phantom Zone. He later learned the ordeal was an accident caused by scientists at Star Labs, but unfortunately the opportunity allowed Rogol-Zar to fucking attack the Earth. Star Labs initiated a plan to restore the Earth, which involved the Atom miniaturizing the entire planet to make it small enough for the Flash to pass it through the Atom Zone projector. The Phantom Zone projector. The plan succeeded, and the Earth was returned to its rightful place in the solar system, but Superman was left behind to fight alone in the Phantom Zone. With no solar energy left to replenish his powers, Superman was badly outmatched until he was rescued by General Zod, who agreed to a temporary truce to take revenge on the man who destroyed both of their planet. The two Kryptonians fought the villain together until Superman was abruptly beamed out of the Phantom Zone by his allies, leaving Zod and Rogol-Zar to finish their match alone. Superman's family finally returned from their space adventure with Jor-El, but John was practically unrecognizable. The science of traveling through space had aged John up by 7 Earth years, returning as a teenager. Superman listened to his family's adventure stories, but before long, Rogol-Zar returned again, that son of a bitch, and this time he was friends with that son of a bitch, General Zod, that son of a bitch. Superman and his son of a bitch Kryptonian family formed a team to finally take down Rogol-Zar, that son of a bitch, once and for all, with Kal, that son of a bitch, and his son of a bitch father going to the ruins of Krypton to look for clues about that son of a bitch villain. While on their trips, Jor-El told his son, while on Krypton, he was a member of the Circle, a secret cabal of intergalactic rulers that controlled the galaxy from the shadows. After helping the Circle ensure their dominance across the galaxy, Jor-El expected the Circle to help him save Krypton, but they told him, nah, fuck off. And Superman was pretty disappointed to find out that his father's kind of a dick. Rogol-Zar, that son of a bitch, ambushed the heroes, but fortunately Zod betrayed Rogol and murked them. When the battle was finished, Superboy, wishing there was a better peacekeeping, was visited by the Legion of Superheroes, who were like, yo, you want to join? And Superman was like, yo, didn't I already join you? And they're like, shut the fuck up. Nobody asked you, Clark. So then, like, the Superboy was like, yeah, I'll join. And then he's like, but then, like, John's like, actually, you know what? I don't want to join because I just got back on Earth and, like, it's kind of shit being in, like, not on Earth. So, like, I don't want to do that. So, like, I'm not going to do that. And so then Superman's like, okay, yeah, I bet you stay. And then Legion's like, I bet. We'll come get you later. And he's like, I bet. I'll join you, like, at another point in time, but just not right now. And they're like, okay.
You know that's nothing if you work with this commercial.
So anyway, Superman was informed by Adam Strange that due to his past crimes and fucking up the time stream, the nations of the galaxy decided that Jor-El was like a bitch and was going to get sent back to Krypton and die like he was supposed to. Superman was pretty sad, but it was also kind of like, you know what, my dad's also kind of a dick, so like I can't even be that mad.
He even likes the limbo.
Like, he's kind of like, yeah, fuck this guy. So in the aftermath of Jor-El dying again, Zod and his family informed the Kents of their decision to create a new Krypton so that, like, they could actually, like have a new planet and stop pissing off Superman and Earth. So Superman came and checked it out, and then once he went back to Earth, Superman talked with Supergirl and Adam Strange and decided to reveal his secret identity to the people at the Daily Planet. And he told everyone in the world that it was who he was. And some people were like, "That's pretty cool," and some people were like, "That's pretty shit, actually. Like, we don't really like that." Superman worked towards protecting the United Planets from an attack by Mongol, who saw the young interstellar nation as a threat to his own galactic empire. After a difficult struggle in which Mongol tried to destroy the Earth, Superman defeated his opponent and was elected by the UN to be Earth's representative. After the battle with Mongol, Superman wondered if revealing his identity was a good idea. So he consulted Khalid Nasser, the latest wizard to hold the mantle of Dr. Fate, to verify whether that was like actually a good idea or not. But it turned out that it was a pretty good idea, and then he fought a bad guy, and he became Dr. Fate briefly.
Doesn't even have 100 subscribers. We can change that.
I need Dick Ray! My pipes are clogged.
Well, let's take a look and see if we can help you. I'll take a look at your plumbing too.
Superman's greatest challenge as ambassador of Earth came in the form of
Second time
Isano Alcor, an alien super soldier from planet Sinmar.
You can use for Dick Ray Plumbing, that's the one you go with. Honestly, to watch these videos evolve is kind of like watching Skynet evolve. At first, you think the acting is just a little awkward. They don't know what they're saying.
Dick Ray's a master in fixing leaky toilets.
Looks like Dick Ray got him. Then you start to wonder.
It's raining. Help! I need Dick! Dick Ray!
When you have a naked person in the shower, any ... can be taken the wrong way. Then you know they figured it out.
Well, you better call Dick Ray Master Plumber.
Dick's already here.
Thank goodness for Dick.
What would we do without Dick? The way he's quit baiting these, he really should be called a masturbator. And then they lean heavy into it.
Gosh, what would I do without Dick?
You gotta love Dick.
Who doesn't?
Dick's the best thing I've gotten since the Wonder Boner.
With Dick Ray Master Plumber, there are no buts. We show up on time, quickly diagnose the problem, and fix it without breaking the bank.
A good plumber should always show up on time and have a distractingly dirty name. Yeah, these ads are really great. They show slowly, but surely they are in on the joke, and they honestly have an adorable way of utilizing it. There's nothing else to say, but who doesn't love Dick?
If you don't know Dick Ray, call today.
Oh, I get it all. Very cute.
Oh, it was to be a soggy day indeed.
An alien super soldier from planet Sidmar, who was inspired by Superman to end his homeworld's isolationism and bring it to the galactic community. Realizing that Alcor had conquered his own homeworld in a violent revolution, Superman helped the United Planets and, fuck this dude up. A mysterious object known as the Totality landed on the Nevada desert, and the Justice League, who had just elected the Martian Manhunter as the new chairman, set up to find it. Superman and Martian Manhunter's bodies were deemed strong enough to withstand the energies, and Batman was like, "Yeah, no, I'm going to go up your ass, and I'm going to control you like a mech." And then he did. Unfortunately, while Superman and Martian Manhunter went on to explore the outer structure, Lex infiltrated Superman's body and also went up his ass and controlled him like a mech. So then they had to fight, and then Lex escaped with the stuff, and he did give control back, but he stole the shit, so that the stuff they needed. So that's kind of a rip bozo. Truly one of the moments of all time. Afterwards, the Justice League dedicated itself towards locating the Legions of Doom's headquarters, but they had to put that search on hold when the Triumvirate of the Sea Gods started their invasion on Earth. God, these fucking comics, man. During this event, Metropolis was flooded and Superman was attacked by Drogu of the Triumvirate. Oh my god, I hate these names. I'm sorry. I love comics. I hate these fucking names. But he was saved by the Flash. And joined by Mara, Superman, and Flash, he traveled to the tomb of Aryan, hoping to find the Tear of Extinction, a relic they could use to stop the fucking guys that I can't pronounce. The Triumvirate. That's what the best you're getting. The Triumvirate. Once they arrived, however, the Tear had already been seized by the Black Manta. Fortunately, Mara was able to take the Tear away from Manta, and he ran away like a little bitch. The Justice League reunited with Aquaman, who had the Trident of Poseidon, and mounted a final assault on the stronghold, okay? Although Aquaman was able to make peace with them,
Manta attempted to use their last weapon, the Death Kraken, to take over the world. Aquaman was able to stop him, sacrificing his life in the process, but the League hoped that he'd survived. Because it's fucking DC Comics, ain't nobody staying dead. Afterwards, a mysterious man calling himself Starman had come to the Hall of Justice to warn the Justice League about the fate of the universe, but his unstable energies began coursing all over Washington until Wonder Woman had to restrain him. The Justice League, with assistance from Starman and the Green Lantern Corps, traveled to the Source Wall in hopes of fixing it. To do that, they gathered the surviving Omega Titans and placed them along the broken wall, like Minecraft blocks. However, their efforts were interrupted by Brainiac, who was now a member of Luthor's new Legion of Doom. Brainiac sabotaged the Source Wall's healing process and stole Starman's powers, using them to resurrect Perpetua. That one wasn't that hard to pronounce. I just started a stutter. Creator of the multiverse and the cosmic entity sealed behind the Source Wall. With the wall destroyed and their mission on a failure, the Justice League were like, I bet, and they left like little bitches. The Justice League had to ask a fucking motherfucking imp guy to open the door and fucking open the sixth dimension and like just fucking get rid of the Legion of Doom. But according to him, only Superman can survive. So then they went to the sixth. Superman went. He went alone, and then he fucking came back, but he was like cooked. Like he got trapped on a remote planet, and he had no way to get the fuck out of there. So he was just like stuck on that planet for like a really long time, and then an older version of himself pulled up and was like, "Yeah, I actually put you here, so like get fucked," and then beat the shit out of him. So anyway, eventually.
It's pretty funny getting someone with that kind of voice to play a fire alarm.
Who are you?
Seymour Smoke! Smoke! Get past that! I'm basically Pennywise if I was left on the grill and smashed with a spatula.
Oh, sorry. But Superman was like, I don't want to die, so he like kept trying to escape, and eventually he got on it. He like rode a star back to Earth, but then the star disappeared, and he just fucking stuck floating in space. But then he found a bunch of suns, and he's like, hell yeah, I'm actually the GOAT, and he managed to get out of the sixth dimension and saved the Justice League. And then defeated the guy that imprisoned him, and he just like actually like one punch manned him, and then was like, you know, you could just like join the Justice League and not be a little bitch, and then he did. And so they decided to try to save the multiverse together from Perpetua. To match Perpetua's enemy, the Justice League gathered allies from all over the multiverse, and also the guy that Superman one-punched, and they tried to find the Monitor and the Anti-Monitor. Superman partook in the mission to find the Monitor on Nil, but they were unable to find the Anti-Monitor on Oward, and instead they were forced to escape an ambush set up by the Legion of Doom. The Justice League only had 3 days to stop Perpetua and the Legion of Doom, so Starman formulated a plan to win the oncoming war, to find the missing pieces of the totality. To that end, the Justice League needed to separate into two teams that would travel to different points in time, the past and the future. Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman went to the future and met the last boy on Earth. He informed Superman's team that the world had been devastated by Brainiac, and just like everyone fucking died, and that it was crazy. So yeah, that was Mod. Wonder Woman realized the Justice Legion from Brainiac's control. Released the Justice Legion from Brainiac's control. It's a new team, Justice Legion A. They were, and together they fought against Brainiac. While Comedy, the last boy on Earth, was tasked with protecting the last fragment of the totality. Comedy brought reinforcements in the battle against Brainiac and gave Superman and his friends enough time to return the fragment of the totality to their homeworld. Unfortunately, Perpetua had regained her full power and was preparing to reshape the multiverse to her will. The Justice League and their remaining allies prepared for one final battle against Perpetua's army. Superman and his friends personally confronted Lex Luthor, who had become Perpetua's most powerful soldier, amidst the ruins of Washington, D.C. Martian Manhunter attempted to connect with every single person in the multiverse to stop Perpetua and prove Justice League was superior, but the multiverse chose the Doom over the Justice, and Quintessence was quickly brought to the Justice League to the moon and informed them that they still had one way, but they would need to defeat Perpetua, but they would have to travel to the farthest reaches of the cosmos. Unfortunately, the mission was a failure and they fucking died. No, I'm just kidding. They were forced to return to Earth Zero, which was already under attack from fucking Batman from the Dark Multiverse, like the fucking Batman who fucking laughs. I hate that character. So much. Superman himself was defeated by the Dark Father, imprisoned within the depths of the sun, and infected with an anti-life equation. As if that wasn't overkill enough, he was defeated. Earth-Zero fell under the rule of the fucking Batman Who Laughs, and the last superheroes had to run away because I don't want to read this. I fucking hate this. Oh, why did comics go so downhill? Oh my god, bro. Fuck the Batman Who Laughs, y'all. Fuck the Batman. I actually fuck the Batman Who Laughs. Worst fucking character ever. Like, I actually licked my ass, bro. I didn't even read these comics like that I'm talking about at this exact moment. The fucking Batman Who Laughs pissed me off so much I stopped reading. Fuck. It says it like 5 times. Okay. Superman was later transferred to New Apocalypse, where he was tortured by the Dark Father until he was rescued by Batman and Wonder Woman. After defeating the Dark Father, Superman helped his friends release an army of superheroes imprisoned within New Apocalypse, and Wonder Woman enlisted them, all on a mission to defeat Perpetua. For that, Superman and his friends needed to travel to the Dark Multiverse and gather enough power to heal the multiverse. Superman and his friends infiltrated Castle Bat, home of the Batman Who Laughs, and came across the imprisoned Barbados, who refused to help the heroes defeat the Batman Who Laughs. And Superman got bored and fucking killed him. So the heroes reached a portal that would take them across different points in the multiverse. And they all had a bunch of crisis energy and just... Superman went to the time of Final Crisis, where he was attacked by Darkseid and a group of Supermen with the anti-life equation. Darkseid attempted to turn Superman into another one of his slaves, but Superman was rescued by Wonder Woman, who convinced a revived Superboy Prime to join the Justice League. Unfortunately, once they returned to Earth-Zero, they discovered the fucking Batman Who fucking Laughs, who became the Darkest Knight, a cosmic god as powerful as Perpetua, and created his own multiverse, the Last 52 multiverse, because we can't have anything fucking nice. The Darkest Knight, fuck you, summoned Castle Bat to kill Superman and his friends. Although Lex defeated Castle Bat, Superman was reluctant to trust him until Lex made him realize that only together could they stop the Darkest Knight. That bitch. Lex convinced a group to build a machine powered by anti-crisis energy, the only thing capable of healing the multiverse. The heroes of Earth-Zero raised an army to make a final stand against the Darkest Knight and give Wonder Woman enough time to find the materials to build a weapon. Before the final battle began, however, Superman constructed a time... Oh my god. There's so much fucking... Oh my god, I'm sorry, I'm not... Why did I fucking make this video? Why did I do this? Why do I torture myself?
I mean, I knew you'd come.
I'm torturing myself, bro. I'm actually, like, can't believe I'm doing this. This is a fucking 200-page script, and I don't even think I'm halfway through. Oh my god, you're kidding me! Oh my god. Oh my god, bro. I'm a hater, bro. I'm a hater. Superman constructed a time-shifting device that could rewind an hour of time, enough time for Superman to help as many people as he could. The device gave out and Superman went to the front lines, but not before spending one last moment of peace with his wife and child. As the Darkest Knight killed Perpetua, Superman and his army prepared to fight the Dark Multiverse army, just in time for Wonder Woman, powered by anti-crisis energy, to return to her allies. Surrounded by the Supermen of the Dark Multiverse, Clark attempted to reason with them and make them see the better part of themselves. His words fell on deaf ears, though, and he had to fight all of them. Fortunately, Superman's family and his group of his villains, led by Lex, were actually able to support him.
Hey everybody, this month for Cameos for Charity, we're doing Wounded Warriors Family Support. Their mission is to provide support to the families of those who have been wounded, injured, or...
Superman was about to be killed by the Last Son until Lex sacrificed his life to save him and destroy the Last Son, while Wonder Woman destroyed the Darkest Night, healed the multiverse, and resurrected everyone who died. Cured from anti-life, Superman returned home and joined his friends in exploring and protecting the multiverse. In an encounter with aliens from the breach, Superman was exposed to deadly radiation. The resulting radiation was sickness, caused him to age rapidly and his powers to fade, so he assembled a team to help protect and improve the world if he died. He called the team the Authority and enlisted the aid of two members, the Enchantress and Manchester Black, to conceal and slow the progression of his condition. The Authority's first mission became clear when an alien craft carrying refugees from Warworld crashed to Earth. The refugees were part of a long-lost group of Kryptonians called the fucking phallic fucking penis heads or some shit, who had been enslaved on Warworld for generations, and Superman swore to free them. The fucking phallic penis motherfuckers ship had been carrying a powerful energy source known as the Genesis Fragment, which Atlantis laid claim to, heightening tensions with the surface and almost leading to war. Superman confiscated the fragment and warned both sides against trying to take it, giving the Justice League no choice but to boot him out. Before Superman left for Warworld, Batman asked him for a favor. He had received visions from a wounded and dying fucking not trapped in the dark multiverse. He asked Superman to bring his new team into the dark multiverse and resolve the situation. I would have told you to go fuck off, but Superman, I guess, agreed, and both entered the multiverse alongside the Authority to combat the Empire of Shadows. Superman and the Authority journeyed to Warworld, despite warnings it was almost certainly a trap, and yeah, it was a fucking trap, and they got murked. Except, luckily, Superman got fucking murked because he lost all his superpowers, so he got his ass beat by a guy named fucking Krillux. But the Krillux proceeded to teach him how to fight without his powers. Superman became a more adept fighter and managed to inspire some of his fellow slaves, but he received a message from Midnighter saying he was planning to destroy the Star Forges which generated the Red Solar, which means that he'd get his powers back, but would also kill millions of people. Krillux told him that there may be another way and led him to an isolated part of Warworld's catacombs made of the same material as the Genesis Fragment. Superman got all his powers back, and all that training was for nothing. Fuck's sakes, man. In time, Superman earned a reputation as the Unbloodied Sword, the warrior that spared his opponents, and inspired a true rebellion. He also became a father figure to a couple people, and also under the advice of Krillux, Superman embarked on a quest for the Fire of Ulgron, a relic of godly power that could end Mongol's reign over Warworld. Although Superman himself didn't really want to use it, he wanted to find it to stop Mongol from using it.
We shouldn't just sit here on our fat asses. We should sit here on our fat asses and review the stinker. Malcolm, the chocolate bar, now!
In a second.
Hey! Little something for the lady? Oh. The film starts off with two scientists named Reed and Ben, played by Ewan Griffith and Michael Chiklis, who wish to get funding to study...
Superman successfully recovers the fire from its resting place, only to find Mongol demanding Superman to surrender, or he'll kill the two children Superman was, role modeling for.
Which translates out to Victor of Doom.
Rather than risk letting the fire fall into Mongol's hands, Superman entrusts the fire to one of the children he helped take care of, just in time for the rebels of Warworld to modify Warworld's solar energy generators and switch the radiation from red to white. Superman recovers his powers and is cured from radiation poisoning, and Mongol dies at the hands of Krillux, who was like, yeah, I fucked you over, get fucked, bud. And Krillux escapes, but Superman's like, I'm going back home, fuck this shit. So, eventually he has one nice day with Lois, which is good, but then he had to deal with fucking an impassionate plea to the United Nations to offer safe haven to Warworld's refugees until they could find a new world. He also allowed Oso and Otho to stay over at the Kent apartment and made efforts to protect Oso from Orion, who recognized Oso as the bearer of the Fire of Ulgron. Although Orion was forced to retreat, he promised to find a way to remove the fire, despite Superman's protest. Superman's renewal with the Justice League was cut short when the League called upon to fight another multiversal threat, this time in the form of Pariah, an ancient scientist whose universe had been destroyed during Crisis of Infinite Earths all the way back in the 80s. Pariah had channeled the power of the Great Darkness, a primal force that existed before the multiverse, to create a dark army full of enslaved supervillains, including an enslaved Darkseid and Doomsday. It's pretty tough. That's actually kind of badass. And created a machine that would recreate the worlds destroyed during Crisis on Infinite Earths that would actually fix all of the fucked up, retarded timeline shit that DC's been doing for years, but it would destroy the Rebirth universe. Please. Oh my god, that would fix all my problems with modern comics, please. No, but everything is too good to be true with DC Comics. So, Superman attempts to reason with Pariah, and the renegade scientist refuses to back down and activates the machine, and everyone's caught in the energies. But it doesn't kill Superman, and puts him in a pocket dimension that represented his decent desire he wanted to see John's whole life. Although Superman was originally happy to see a world in which his son became a man, he realized this world was not real and dedicated himself towards finding a way to escape. He learned to control the illusion's energies and used this power to return to the real world and fight Pariah.
Victor did. Oh, I'm sure Victor did. I'm sure he told you it was for advanced breasticulation research.
Superman and his friends joined Earth's remaining superheroes in fighting Pariah's Dark Army, with Clark personally saving John from a still enslaved Doomsday. The Justice League ultimately sealed Pariah in his own fantasy world, but Deathstroke obtained control over the Great Darkness and attempted to destroy the multiverse. Fuck you. This is... oh my god, I know what the... Black Adam transfers his magical powers to literally everybody, and they defeat the Dark Army, while Dr. Light and the Flash family purify the multiverse from the Great Darkness infection. Although the Dark Crisis has ended, the Justice League has disbanded, and its members chose to go separate ways. Clark and John thank Black Adam for his help, and acknowledging that despite their differences, at least they were on the same side. And Black Adam said, "Can you smell what the Rock is cooking?" and proceeded to rock all over the place. Project Blackout. This is kind of the most modern thing, so I think we're actually really close to the end. Finally, fuck's sakes, man.
Now, if you'll excuse me, there's a bucket about to be filled with my tears waiting.
Soon after the crisis, Luthor came to the realization that he and Superman should work together. However, he should not be his equal. That Clark should be an outsider alien. Should always to be. To that end, Luthor created Project Blackout using Henry Bendix's technology, Warworld technology, and the powers of Manchester Black to erase Clark and John's identities from the memory of the world. Superman would see the effects of this on Perry White, who didn't realize suffered a heart attack after seeing Superman at the Kent farm, because he was like, "What the fuck?" Luthor lured Superman to LexCorp Tower using a special watch based off of Jimmy Olsen's signal watch, and was like, "Yeah, I killed him." Superman battled Luthor, who ranted that Superman should have told Luthor he was an outsider and wanted to punish him for telling the world before him, because he's just a jealous little gay boy. When he revealed the Project Blackout kill Black, Superman became enraged over the death of a man he'd given a second chance and willingly took it only for Luthor to snuff it out. Defeating Luthor, he took him to jail. He later met with Batman and Nightwing and learned that, outside of those within the Kent farm and its barrier when Project Blackout struck, the Justice League, the Titans, and the Reservists still knew of Clark and John's identity thanks to psychic shields by the Martian Manhunter. Batman convinced him to use this as a second chance, as he believed that Lois and John lost something when he told the world his identity. After Lex's defeat, Clark and Lois announced their plans to formally adopt Oso and Otho into the Superman family, and the media dubbed the young twins as the Super Twins. The reorganized Superman family's first mission was the defense of the new Steelworks Tower, an institute founded by John and Natasha Ayers as a way to properly research and develop new technologies for the benefit of mankind. But then they fucking made Metallo again. Although the Superman family foiled Metallo's first assault on Steelworks Tower, Metallo attacked them again with a fucking army of cyborgs called Necro-Drones. Metallo ordered his Necro-Drones to self-destruct and injured Supergirl, forcing them to help her and let him escape. Believing Lex to be responsible, Superman confronted him, but Lex was like, "Yeah, no, it wasn't me." Metallo would cause trouble for a third time and kidnap the Super Twins. Superman managed to rescue them, though, and he defeated Metallo, who was like, "Yeah, my sister's kidnapped, and I didn't actually want to do any of this, but I want to protect her." So Superman's like, "I bet I'll help your sister, but like you're still a bitch, and I want you to go to jail." And he's like, "I bet I'll go to jail for you if you help my sister." So a horde of Necro-Drones attacked A-Town, the apartment complex in Metropolis, where the where the refugees are. While the Superman family defended A-Town from Necro-Drones, Superman deduced that it was actually Cyborg Superman who caused all these problems, not Lex Luthor. With the Necro-Drones temporarily defeated, Superman reluctantly activated a copy of the Eradicator to track down Henshaw's latest body to an airport. Superman, his family, and Metallo mounted an assault at Henshaw's base, only to find out that he turned Metallo's sister into a robot. The Superman family deactivated the Necro-Drones, and Metallo destroyed Henshaw and killed Cyborg Superman, but Tracy was fucking dead and died. So shortly before he was arrested, Lex had made Superman the legal owner of LexCorp, which he renamed Supercorp, in Superman's honor. Initially, Superman was like, "The fuck?" But Mercy Graves told him that he threatened if he would make everyone lose their job if Superman didn't take it. So Superman took it just to let people have their jobs, and he used the resources of the company to protect the world from at threats like Parasite and the Silver Banshee. Lex explained that before Superman's arrival, he tried to be a hero and protect the city's downtrodden masses from farm and graft, two scientists performing unethical experiments on kidnapped victims, and that they are the ones that created Parasite and Banshee. Later, while trying to find farm and graft, Superman stumbled upon a message left by them in the ruins of Metropolis, warning him about something called Project Change. In his quest to discover what Project Change was, Superman agreed to use Supercorp's resources and found this project was an experiment where Lex tried to build a special prison for villains. Only one prison cell was built, deep below Stryker's island. Superman and Mercy Graves went there and tried to free its prisoner, Sammy Stryker, only to find out that Stryker wanted revenge on Lex for imprisoning him. Superman escaped from the special prison and intercepted Stryker with help from his family, and Lex explained his old history with the chain and the need to lock him up again. Superman put his special suit on, equipped with kryptonite gauntlets, and kept the chain occupied long enough for Superboy to put him back in his cell. Unfortunately, that also means, wearing a suit of kryptonite while you are Superman means you touched kryptonite, and now you're kind of fucking cooked in the Supercorp medical wing. Knowing that Farm and Graft would continue targeting people wronged by Lex, Superman headed back into the field with Marilyn Moonlight in a fight against Graft, who teleported them to the Wild West. A radical, humanocentric movement, the Blue Earth, started to gain popularity in Metropolis, and its leader, Nora Stone, was offered an interview to the Daily Planet. Clark was put in charge of the interview, and even though he figured out she was lying, she was able to frame the Blue Earth's mission as the preservation of humanity. During and after the interview, Clark grew weaker and weaker and was attacked by Stone's bodyguard, who somehow drained his powers. Luckily, Clark used Lex's old anti-Kryptonian weapons and defeated the guard. Still, Clark's powers would take time to fully recharge, and he asked John Henry to build a special armor for him. With his new armor, Superman easily defeated a gang of Blue Earthers that somehow gained Kryptonian powers and were hurting criminals. Superman's powers were slowly restored, and he deduced that Stone was giving powers to her followers to demonize aliens and strengthen her political stance. He then remembered his old adventure with Batman and the Authority to the dark multiverse and realized Stone was actually Janan Al Ghul, and she had just kidnapped Otho. To find Otho, Superman had asked John Constantine's help, and they invaded Blue Earth's headquarters and liberated Etrigan and Bloodwind from their prison. And together they traveled to Earth Al Ghul to save Otho from Janan. Upon their arrival, Superman and his allies attacked the Al Ghul citadel just as Janan was preparing her invasion of Earth. Janan had also brainwashed Otho into attacking her adoptive father. Superman's love for her daughter allowed her to break free from the brainwashing, and Janan was forced to begin her invasion prematurely. Superman and his allies returned home, just in time for the Superman family and the Blue Earthers to join forces and defend the world together. After a fierce battle, Janan is defeated and Etrigan throws her soul into hell because go get fucked, I guess. Unfortunately, peace didn't last long because Bizarro showed up, and Bizarro had stolen artifacts from the multiverse and was casting spells on people and doing a little trolling. Superman tried to save Bizarro, but Bizarro completed the spell and just fucking disappeared, and then everyone turned into Bizarro, and even Superman became Bizarro. Through sheer willpower, Superman fought Bizarro's mental domination and tried to find a way to undo his spell, all while trying to prevent the citizens of Metropolis from hurting each other. The superhero community isolated Metropolis from the rest of the world, and Superman elected to stay behind and help people. But he fucking failed, and the spell got everywhere, and everyone became Bizarro, and then everyone died. Just kidding. But Superman was the only one unaffected by the spell, so he decided to request assistance from the only other person who wasn't Bizarro, the fucking Joker. Well, he was Bizarro, but he's the only person not insane. Using Kryptonian meditation techniques and guidance from the new Joker, who was sane, Superman traveled deep into his mind and fought Bizarro, and he took him out. And he actually managed to stop him and undo the spell, even though it turned the Joker evil again. And although the crisis was over, a small piece of Bizarro remained, but he was just like, no, fuck you, I'm ignoring you now. I don't want to talk to you, la la la, I can't hear you. The House of Brainiac and Absolute Power. But just as Clark and Lois were enjoying a day off, Brainiac was like, no, and sent a bunch of aliens and shit to try and conquer Metropolis and fucking kill everybody. Superman faced off against the general of these robots and was demanded it to be taken to Brainiac, but Lex was like, I'll do it instead, because Brainiac had Lex's daughter, and Superman needed to save people. So after the attack, Superman decided that the only way to find Brainiac would be to find Lobo. He tracked Lobo down to Coast City and demanded to learn about his connection to Brainiac, but Lobo was like, I don't know what you're talking about, bro. And then Superman was like, bro, he's doing that. And Lobo was like, oh shit, I didn't know, my bad, I'll help you.
The United Planets had established a blockade around the Earth, and to get past it, Supercorp provided Superman and Lobo with some motorcycles for space, and then they fucking got kidnapped. So the robots distracted Superman and Lobo enough for a Brainiac ship to escape from Superman, and Lobo took the Man of Steel to Hardcore Stations, a place where they could find information about Brainiac. Unfortunately, Chackle tracked them down and convinced Lobo to betray Superman in exchange for an opportunity to replace him. With help from Chackle and his men, Lobo captured Superman and took him to Brainiac, who was already waiting for him. Brainiac connected Superman and his other metahumans to a special machine and just fucking murked them.
And tries to turn the team against each other.
Angry at Brainiac's betrayal, Lobo released Superman, who told his allies to protect Lex's daughter, and they fought them. They had a big fight, a big boy battle for sure, certainly.
I'm gonna show him by refusing his cure. Really, that's what happened. I spent my whole life protecting you, and for what? So you can play Twister with your girlfriend while I'm the freak of the wheel? That'll show my only hope for salvation. I sure showed me. Pow, 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 pow.
Lex eventually managed to find a plane to defeat Brainiac, but he had to get into the thing, and it was a whole thing, and Lex managed to delete Brainiac's database, but the ship had damage, and Brainiac had a bunch of emotion and was like, yo, save this one city. So Superman was like, alright, fine. But then he was like, alright, fuck you, bye, die, get out of here, fuck off, I don't like you anymore. But also, Lex Luthor had amnesia. Superman and his allies would not have time to rest, though, because Amanda Waller released fucking a bunch of robots again. And one of them stole Superman's powers. Oh my god, can you stop losing your powers to robots? It's happened like 12 fucking times. Just in the Rebirth continuity. So tedious, dude. This is why people say Superman's boring, because holy fuck, bro. It's ridiculous, man. It's ridiculous.
Did you raid George Sanders' makeup kit from the 60s Batman? You're 2 seconds away from the Austrian ice puns. Before I figure out why the hell I suddenly hate you all right now. Johnny distracts the missile away while Susan goes to save Reed. Fire.
Oh yeah, and then Superman got shot and his life got, but then he got surgery. Nightwing took over with all the fucking heroes who didn't know what they were doing because they didn't have powers anymore. Then Brainiac fucking attacked again. And Amanda Waller's like, oh fuck, I built Brainiac again. And then fucking Superman's son turned evil. Somebody had to leave. And then he was captured by Brainiac. And then someone sacrificed himself so that Superman could get into the Phantom Zone with his friends. And then they set up a fucking base in Themyscira. And then Superman and Zatanna traveled to the Justice League Dark's headquarters. And they went to a magical fucking place. And then they got a fucking demon lord. And he was like, yo, I'm gonna help you with some shit, but you're gonna have to pay. And then, basically, the devil is like, I don't care about your soul, Superman. I just want you to say one lie to prove that you're not perfect. And Superman's like, fine. So then he told a lie. A gay little lie. And then they fucking got back to the House of Heroes. But everyone fucking died except Dr. Light.
I think you can see why as superheroes we were so inspired by this movie. All you gotta do is look hot and tight outfit, say a lot of exposition about yourself without actually exposing any character, and only say people and you yourself caused the trouble. The rest of the time, just look out for yourself and flaunt what little you do. Sheesh, I can't imagine at all why anybody wouldn't enjoy this fantastic superhero film. It just friggin' inspires so much.
They were attacked by Confusion, one of the Borough of Sovereignty's agents, and Superman and his friends escaped from the bleed and returned home, and I just want this to be over, man. This has been difficult for me. I've been fucking narrating 200 pages of script.
He'll come for you. This looks like a job I adequately impressive dream. Wow, that was easy.
Yeah, now I'm turning into Xiaoping's head from Hong Kong 97.
Yeah, stuff with glasses.
That's it. I'm gonna expose myself to that meteorite and actually use my powers to benefit humanity. Out of the way. All right, you giant sack of space rock, come to me! Wow, you just became really good at Hong Kong 97. How come you guys get all the cool stuff? Because we love you.
God, please be almost. Oh my God, it's barely almost over. Is it? Oh my God, I'm still so far. I hate. Wait, no, actually, I'm not that far from the bottom. So yeah, Green Arrow helped, and they fucking killed all the robots, and then everyone got their powers back, and then Amanda Waller went to jail, and then all the bad guys went to jail, and then the Fortress of Solitude got blown up. And then the new Justice League started. And then Superman and Supergirl got attacked by people from the Phantom Zone that were an evil monster. And then they stopped it being an evil monster, and it was like, oh, sorry, I didn't mean to get turned into an evil monster.
You mean you have no recollection when a meteor smashed into Earth?
And then Mon-El came back and imprisoned Zadu and was like, I want your spaceship. And the Phantom Zone was turning into a physical place because of the ether. And it was going to release the prisoners. It created physical realms within the zone and all that shit. So a bunch of bad guys were able to come out and do bad shit. So Superman and Valcon were like, no, and they had to fight the ether. And then Superman got like butt fucked by the ether, and that was not good. And then he accidentally traveled back in time again. So then he went and asked his dad for help, being like, yo, I'm fucking stuck on fucking Krypton. And then Zor-El got arrested, and he's like, yo, I'll help you. Oh, fuck, he's dead. After their arrest, Superman, his dad, and his mom, they were in trial together. But everyone got to leave, so that's good. But the Phantom Zone projector got left with the Kryptonian Council, and Jor-El didn't like that. And also Superman was like, hey, wait a minute, what the fuck? But they saved some shit, and Jor-El took Superman to Supergirl's dad, and they fixed Superman's stuff that he had that was broken. And then Superman got his powers back again. And then everybody's like, yo, wait. Actually, like, Superman tells them, yo, this place is gonna blow up. We're actually from the future. And they're like, oh, fuck. So then he goes back to the Phantom Zone. But the zone's fucking getting destroyed. So Superman's like, fuck. And then he has to leave. And so then he escapes and goes back to Earth. Then he tries to get as many people in the Justice League as possible. And then Darkseid attacks, so they have to fight that. They have to fight Darkseid with the Spectre's powers. Zatanna enchants Superman, and they manage to stop. They manage to fucking kill Darkseid, so that's good. But then a portal opens to Earth Alpha, and Superman's like, oh, cool, it's a new Earth. So Booster Gold's like, I'll go. And then he fucking disappeared. So then the Justice League's like, well, that's fucked. Anyway, we got some shit to do. And then a terrorist organization showed up and started blowing up South Africa. And also some people lost and switched powers, so now they had to figure that out. Lois Lane apparently had fucking superpowers now. Okay. And then Doomsday got out of hell, so Superman had to fight Doomsday, and then another Doomsday came in and was named a Time Trapper, And then the Time Trapper was actually Doomsday and wanted Superman's help to fucking fight another Doomsday. But Superman's like, fuck you. And so he's like, I bet. I'm out of here. And then the current Doomsday tried to attack, and Super Corp stopped him with Parasite, but Doomsday fucking killed Parasite. And then Superman had to beat the shit out of Doomsday. And then Doomsday got arrested. And then that's it. More aliens showed up, more Doomsday showed up, more Darkseid shit, bunch of fighting. And then Superman got infected with red kryptonite, and he nearly killed the Time Trapper version of Doomsday, but Lois Lane with Superman powers helped him. I fucking hate that they gave Lois Lane powers. Fuck off. And yeah, they went into a frozen bottle, and then Jimmy Olsen got injured. And then fucking Lex Luthor was like, yo, bitches, we're selling Supercorp, so get fucked. So then Lex got his memories back. And then Lex Luthor, but they couldn't, Superman tried to get him arrested, and Lex is like, you can't arrest me, I haven't done anything yet. So then he got let go, and then they went on the Justice League, and Lois joined the Justice League, and then they fought a bunch of bad guys. And then it turned out that Lex had no problem with that. Lex didn't do any of the evil stuff going on with Lex Supercorp. It's actually Mercy Graves. So Superman fired her and told her to get fucked. And then Mercy used Kryptonite against him and created a clone of Lex. And there's a clone of Lex Luthor running around now. And that's where we have built up to in the...
Actually, Flux Capacitor would sound more reasonable at this point.
This is where we are currently in the comics, so thank you for watching this actually painful experience of reading all that one sitting. I started doing this at like 3:30. It's now almost 9 o'clock. I am in pain.